Go ahead and call to order the City Council meeting for August 25th, 2026. Please rise for the invocation and pledge led by Councilmember Kent McKinney.
Please pray with me. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the volunteers. We heard a lot about volunteers already in the workshop today. We have volunteers that we will be appointing to city boards today. We have other city committees and task forces that are led by volunteers and do a lot of good work for the city. We have volunteers from around the country that over 20,000 hours donated recently. We're so blessed with so many local organizations also that have volunteers doing good work within the community that make Kerrville a great place to be and to live. Thank you also for a new experience for our community with Schreiner University returning to football. We're blessed to have a very strong and capable coach, a leader of young men. And Coach Allen and his staff are doing good things to compete in a stronger league than they've had in the past. Please guide us in our deliberations this evening. Please guide us also through the recovery for many months yet to come. And please bless our first responders, our troops around the world, so many of them far away from home. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. McKinney. Announcements of public interest.
Good evening, Mayor. Yes, sir. We have some announcements for community interest today. First, the Butts Holdsworth Memorial Library is celebrating its 59th birthday tomorrow. The library originally opened on August 26, 1967, and has now been serving Kerrville and Kerr County for nearly 6 decades. We invite everyone to stop by the library for a slice of cake and help us celebrate. The library is also inviting residents to share their favorite library memories for next year's 60th anniversary celebration. Next, golfers can take on Greenskeeper Revenge this Saturday at Scott Schreiner Golf Course. The tournament was originally postponed because of weather and will begin with a 9 a.m. shotgun start. This is a 4-person scramble, and the golf course maintenance teams will be having a little fun with the course. Creative pin placement, unusual tee locations, and other surprises designed to make this anything but a normal golf round. Registration is $220 per team and includes green fees and cart rental. Awards will go to the top 3 teams, and space is limited, so teams can register by calling the Scott Schreiner Golf Course. And coming up on Saturday, September 12th, the first ever Park and Recreation, in partnership with Kerrville Pets Alive, will present the first ever Bark in the Park event. The event will take place at Sample Park from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. This is a free community event for pet owners, animal lovers, and for families. Visitors will have an opportunity to meet adoptable dogs, connect with rescue organizations, and learn about resources that support animal health, welfare, and responsible pet ownership. Pet-related businesses, nonprofits, and rescue organizations interested in participating can contact Parks and Recreation for more information. And looking a little farther ahead, Family Fright Night returns Saturday, October 31st. This is a free, family-friendly Halloween event featuring trick-or-treating, food trucks, games, and more. Right now, Parks and Recreation is looking for local businesses and organizations to participate by hosting booths. Booth registration is free, and you can call the Parks Department for more information. The deadline to register a booth is Monday, October 19th. So the sooner you can get in there, the better, because the space is limited. Other than that, that's all the announcements I have. Mayor, back to you, council.
Mr. Greenwell, I understand that you recently received your certification. So
Yes, sir.
congratulations.
Got my certified public communicators program certificate from Texas Christian University.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I received a nice gift in the mail this week. It's from a Tivy grad, Colonel Crystal Carberry. She graduated from Tivy in 1998. And this flag, according to this little certificate, flew over the Pentagon. So it was nice to have it, and we'll display it in the front display case, I hope. All right, any other announcements? Please.
Water Street Festival, second annual Water Street Festival will be downtown Kerrville, October 24th. That's a Saturday. It's a free event. It's from 9 to 3. We already have 3 great musicians lined up, lots of great vendors of all types. The businesses downtown would love to see you. Come in, browse, purchase something, have some lunch. Even if you can spare an hour on that Saturday, it's worth coming down. Water Street and Earl Garrett, parts of it will be closed. So free parking in the garage. It's a great time to come together and celebrate our town. See you there.
I'm not going to speak for the Pericinis that are going to speak in a little bit, but I'm going to talk about something else. 25 years ago, this September, we were attacked on our own soil. 9/11 this year at 5 p.m. at Shriner Trailhead, together with Hill Country Veterans, General Mike Oates is putting together another. It's not going to be a walk this year. The walk took its toll on some, but it's going to be a celebration of life, a remembrance of those, and our own Dr. Charlie McCormick is going to be the guest speaker. So if you're out and about on 9/11, make your way over to Shriner and remember 25 years ago, which I cannot believe, because there was a song that was written by Alan Jackson, "Where Were You When the World Stopped Turning?" I remember exactly where I was and exactly what I was doing on 9/11. So please come out, remember those that we lost on 9/11, and just have some community, good, positive fellowship, because we need that right now in Kerrville too.
Thank you. Ed?
Yeah, well, I alluded to the Shriner football. I want to say a couple more words there. I attended their 3 of their 6 away games. Last year was development season, and this year there's the first inaugural season. It's a real thing, and it's kind of a new thing for the community. It can be really can be a big addition, I think, to the community. The Coach Allen is. If you haven't had a chance to meet him, I hope you get a chance to, because he's really quite a strong individual, and I think he's doing some really good things. But having some college football here, we're lucky to have Shriner University, and so I encourage you to get your tickets, buy season tickets. They're not outrageous, and I think you see a lot of action because there's a no huddle offense, and it's go, and in their development season last year with their freshmen, they won 5 of their 6 games against JVs, playing upperclassmen. So this year they'll be playing freshmen and sophomores against the full slate. Really, they moved up to a tougher league that has some schools with some real football tradition in there, and they're going to have their hands full. They'll need our help. So anyway, I encourage you to help support the new football team in town.
All right, let's move on to item 2A. Ms. Behrens.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I know this has been long awaited. Most of you have worked through this process with us. So I want to turn it over to Michael to say a few words before we get rolling here.
Well, standing in for Dalton tonight, I think he would say that it's a challenge for a finance team to come up with a budget in a year, right? It's always hard trying to compete, competing priorities and how do you balance it all out? To do it the year after, the flood is a challenge, and then to do it again the year after a flood with another flood looming is an impossible task, right? And so the team over there has done a fantastic job putting all this together, trying to balance competing priorities, limited resources, all the rest of it. And so just kudos to Julie and her team for all the hard work they do. They make our lives a whole lot easier. And so hopefully this will be a good discussion, and we look forward to hearing the feedback from you all.
Okay, thank you. So before we get started, I think Michael said it, and none of us did this by ourselves. So thank you to all the department heads, assistant directors, managers. We couldn't have done it without them. I think they get tired of that call or email from finance saying, hey, I have a question. Again, to my team, of course, for the tolerance over the last few months and keeping things rolling smoothly. Really no hesitation, no reduction in services over the last few months, so can't say enough about our team. Jacob and Trina were putting this all on me tonight, so I'm going to embarrass them by saying I honestly couldn't have done it without them. We divide and conquer. Caroline is also in our midst and has done a lot of work on the backside, gathering fee schedules and helping us build out the budget document. So it's a lot of work to get here while you're still doing regular operations, and as Michael said, the challenge that we have faced in the past few years has been something we never thought we would have to face, and certainly not faced again. So we probably anticipate we will have some amendments as we go through 27, just with the unknowns that we're facing now. So we've made adjustments as we can. Please stop me if there's something you want to talk about in particular, but we're going to do summary level, and then I'll give you some details on the things that I felt like were most notable within the budget. So first, let's talk about the citywide budget. Sorry, I got off track here. We're going to look at it as a glance. So our approach this year, and really for the second year, has been zero-based budgeting. So we really challenge departments to turn in an operational budget minus the things they can't control, like personnel related costs, to equal to or less than the prior year. And for most of them, they delivered, with a few exceptions that had unfunded mandates and things like that that we couldn't get around. But you'll see as we go through some things that we did to try to stay as conservative as we could. Focus really on the needs, with future needs budgeted in asset replacement or CIP. So trying to create some consistency with the general fund so that the larger purchases are managed outside of those funds, and then allows us to also save for the future and project what those needs are. So projecting financial sustainability, so we've talked about this a lot, maintaining healthy reserves, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, and protecting recurring revenues. So ensuring ongoing commitments to sustainability. And we've talked about this. Ongoing is, we really heard from, multiple councils now, and also from the public plan for the future. And so we really have tried to be intentional about that over the past few years. So flood recovery, of course, our top priority right now. We have a lot of prioritization still to go. Finishing up some things in 25. Some things were finished in 25 that are now damaged again. So we'll be working through those processes with departments over the next few months. And then maximizing outside funding. So our departments do a good job of pursuing grants, and whether they're reimbursement grants or just straight out grants for either capital or operating costs. And I'll show you some of the ones that have been achieved, and then also some things that we have in the works. So citywide budget, this is everything included. So revenues, $122 million, expenses, $127 million. The general fund and the water fund are balanced according to our policy. That is something that's a little bit different sometimes than other governments have to do, but we do have to have those two funds balanced. You can see $5 million more in expenditures and revenues. That's really just due to multi-year nature of capital projects. So we recognize revenue for capital projects when it's received, and then we recognize expenses over time as those projects are paid for. So this is not unusual. So this is the citywide budget, 29 separate funds within the city, different accounting rules and restrictions for each fund. As I said, general fund and water fund both require a balanced budget. but due to the nature and rules and restrictions of other funds, they're not required to be balanced. So you'll see some that'll be net positive one year and net negative the next, just depending on when funds are received and when funds are expended. Details for each of these funds are available in the budget document. As I said, we're going to focus primarily on general fund and water fund. So just to be conscious of everyone's time, there's some things, smaller funds that won't be talked about today. So budget structure, I think it's important as we go through and you see gen ops or general operations throughout the budget within different departments. Consider that a department within funds that have multiple departments. So general fund, for example, has multiple departments. Some of the expenses support all of those departments. And so you'll see that, and I'll give you a breakdown of those as we go through so that you can see how those monies are distributed. But it includes things like transfers out, liability insurance, contingency, our city garage maintenance contract that is held in the water fund and in the general fund, workers' comp insurance, community support agreements, certain professional services, and then we do have some anticipated salary savings in there that we kind of estimate based on what we've seen historically. That gives us a little bit of savings that is distributed later across departments instead of budgeting shortages within the departments. So we're going to look at the general fund first. Get where I need to be. Okay. So let's look at the 5-year forecast for the general fund. So this is a very summarized level. You've all seen the forecast. Question? Okay. So we've all seen the forecast, and it's a huge document, but it's really hard to follow. So we put it as summary level just for the next 5 years past 27. Looked at total anticipated revenues as well as expenditures and really focused on fund balance. And one of the questions we keep being asked is, what is our rainy day fund? How much money do we have that we can commit to capital projects? You know, the hope is that FEMA will declare so that any monies that we might spend from fund balance or other sources, we would have the potential for partial reimbursement. So we keep that in mind, even as the things David talked to you about earlier with debris, that we are doing things to align with eligibility for that reimbursement should that become available. But the biggest thing to see here is the reserve percent. So our city policy is to maintain between 15 and 25% of expenditures in reserves or fund balance. So that lines up with GFOA best practices. We really shoot for 25% all the time. This is a very good example of why we do that. And you can see some years that are heavier, and the question always becomes, well, if we have 30%, why are we holding that much percent? And the answer is, we're looking 10 years out. So we're not looking at today. And so remember, we focus on 25% of overall fund expenditures. So as those expenditures grow, then your fund balance cash requirement is going to be larger. So we have to protect that looking out. So I wanted to show you this just through 2032. Some of these out years aren't balanced. This is just kind of a living document, but it's really just a baseline of what we're projecting for the future. I say that because of the question that we just brought up, and that is, what can we use out of those balances without pushing us below our reserve requirements? So remember, 15% is the bottom. That would make me a little bit shaky, I think, if we got to that point. But this is an emergency fund, and so we're in a state of emergency. And so long as we are doing things of hopeful reimbursement, then, I think that it's the responsible thing to look at these things. And of course, it would require council action with specific expenditures that were one time. So I did 2 scenarios here, one with a $2 million reduction in fund balance, one with a $3 million reduction in fund balance. And you can see that even with the $3 million, we're still above the 15% in 2032. Assuming that all of our projections are on. Of course, this is a living document, so things change every day, but we track this pretty closely, so we're pretty comfortable in saying these numbers. So just something for consideration for future conversations that we have to have. So proposed general fund budget, $41.48 million. So that's a $1.67 million increase over last year, 4.2%. I really wanted to focus on where those increases coming from. So our primary increase is $846,000 in group health, $435,000 in transfer out to CIP and asset replacement. And so you can see that 1.2 million of that is right there. 71% of our budget is personnel costs, which is about typical and what we've seen. And I have some detail a little bit further for you to look at that. 24 departments working in the general fund. And then you can see some detail underneath there that's not really easy to see here, but on future slides, you'll be able to take a closer look at these categorical revenues and expenditures. But just wanted to show you they're balanced and how that kind of looks. So proposed revenues for the general fund, they're diverse, but really heavily property tax driven. And as I said, we're probably going to talk more about property tax than anybody wants to, but I want to make sure that we're being clear on what we're doing, how we're doing it, what we're getting there, and answer any questions that anyone might have for that. So property tax, the fund's largest revenue source. We budget that using rates calculated by the Kerr County Tax Assessor Collector. And there's a lot of factors, historical collection rates and several other factors that we take into account when creating a budget off of that information. Sales tax, second largest revenue source, so the city receives a penny from every taxable dollar spent in Kerrville. Historically, it's been very stable. Sales tax has been very good to us over the last several years, and we're starting to see what was flattening out come back a little bit, so we're hopeful. We say cautiously optimistic, but we're watching that very close. Service revenues are generated from EMS and solid waste landfill fees, so remember that curbside waste disposal and recycling is just a pass-through for Republic Services, so we have a contract with them, so those aren't city-generated revenues. Transfers in, so this would be water fund administration fees. So remember, the water fund acts like a business. So the general fund provides services to the water fund, such as HR, finance, legal, and all of those components that they would have to, as a business, source from somewhere else. So that's what that transfer is. The street use fee that is similar to a franchise fee that other utility companies pay, and then also some smaller transfers from hotel occupancy tax as those are allowable. So franchise fees include fees for utility companies like KPUB, Atmos, Windstream, and other cable companies that some of them are smaller, but really to allow them to use our rights-of-way. And a lot of times their utility work creates problems for our streets, and so that's captured there. And then intergovernmental would be our next largest, and that is going to be our Kerr County EMS agreement and also our agreement with Kerrville ISD to provide school resource officers for the school, and that is calculated each year, twice a year, and that is based on actual expenses. So there's not a profit there. It's just a service we provide at the cost that we incur. So this just gives you a little more detailed look at revenues. You can see the 25 actual, 26 budget, and then 27 proposed budget, the dollar change and the percent change out to the right. The prior year is going to be property tax that's owed from years not in this current fiscal year. And so those come in, those are just budgeted on historical. They come in as people pay those old taxes. And then rebates or 380 agreements, those are agreements that we have either with developers or other things that have happened over the years that we pay out each year. Sales tax, you can see a 5.2% increase in budget, but that is really about 2% over where we anticipate 26 to end. So last year we budgeted flat with 25, and 25 actually came in a little bit lower than 24. So it's important to track these things and see what's happening with sales tax month over month and year over year so that we can have some confidence when we're budgeting. Other taxes and franchise fees, that's what we described a while ago. And then you can see down the list the smaller revenues that contribute to the overall general fund. So let's talk about property tax. So the fiscal year 2027 tax rate calculation, we did have to do quite a few things in addition to what is considered normal because of the adoption of the disaster rate in fiscal year 2026. So the tax assessor collector calculates the various rates for us, and then we work together to go back through and look at things like TERS and the other things that are impacting it from the ledger side, and then of course our debt that we owe and have to pay to our bondholders prior to any maintenance and operations happening. So because of the 2026 state disaster declaration and some other eligibility items, the city does have the option to adopt the disaster tax rate for 2027. It's important to note that council directed Bob, tax assessor, to calculate that disaster rate with the approval of resolution 35-26 at our last meeting. So tax code 26042 changed in 2026. So there's some different information that has to be provided and some other boxes, I guess, that have to be checked before that calculation can happen. We did that, so providing TDM estimates of allowable expenses, and then also making sure that at least one person within the city was eligible for a property tax exemption related to the flood. So we received this disaster rate last Friday. Took us a little bit to work through to see really what the impact was going to be. So special thanks to Bob. He's had to do a lot of extra work for us this year. So we appreciate his help and support anytime we call him and have a question. The calculation of this rate does not mean council has to consider it, but we couldn't even look at what that rate was without these orders directing him to do so. So quick flood update. So our insurance company and TDM have both completed on-site inspections. Of course, we're still turning over things that we're finding that were damaged that you just didn't know at first. Our insurance paid out the max of the policy, so $5 million was received for the 2026 flood. We're working on updating cash flow forecasts and just really reviewing any undesignated funds that we have that could be appropriated to some of these repairs. So we're in the process working with other departments to prioritize what the highest priority repairs are, and so that we can allocate those dollars accordingly and get those repairs made. Again, no federal disaster declaration at this time. I know there's a big push to make that happen, so we're hopeful. I think that we really had it a little different last year, and we got immediate response. This year's been a little different, and from what I'm told, this is more the norm. So we're not in panicking, assuming that they're not going to declare. We're just waiting and providing the information that was requested from us. So FEMA estimated to return to pre-disaster that our damage estimates exceed $100 million, as Michael talked to you about that earlier, and I won't get off into all those things, but a more realistic estimate we think is around $65 million. Notable damages are listed here. I won't go through all of those because Michael talked to you about those earlier, but one of them in this packet for the public as we consider the things that are going to impact our budget moving forward. We continue to put this out there so that property owners know that if they experience loss from the flood, especially if it impacted the value of their property, that they have until October 30th to go to the Kerr Central Appraisal District and file an exemption for disaster loss. And so I know that I've worked with KirkCAD quite a bit on this. They are expecting it. Some people are turning them in. I think there's still the message that just needs to get out there a little bit louder so that people know that that's an option, and we keep pushing it out as much as we can. So let's look at property tax rates. So again, these are calculated by the tax assessor collector. So no new revenue rate for 2027 is 5,706. The no new revenue M&O rate is 4,314. So you can see down there, the biggest notice is our debt rate dropped. That's going to happen as we have growth in value or we have a reduction in debt payments. And so it seems like a little bit, but it really has a pretty big impact because what's left over as debt drops gets added to the M&O portion of the rate. So total voter approval rate is 5,846, and then you'll see the voter approval disaster rate there at 5,995. So the proposed budget, it was presented to you at 5,846. That's the rate that was available to us at the time. Then I put an estimate down here at the bottom. So we're estimating general fund revenue at the voter approval rate is about 14.4 million. Estimated general fund revenue at the disaster rate is about 4.96 million. So 14.96 million. So a difference there between the disaster and voter approval rate, about 490,000. These are estimates. We don't know the extent of lost value yet until the time lapses for those exemptions, and KirkCAD can calculate those and give us an updated roll. So that we expect that will be probably mid-December before we have a good handle on that. So big question, and I will tell you that the big question for me when we were sitting in the office working through this is, why is our no new revenue rate increasing? Like what's going on? So I'm going to tell you a couple things. So as we worked through this, we had an exemption increase, and we talked about this in workshop, 69.7 million more in exemptions than in 2026. So those exemptions are removed from the value prior to calculating the no new revenue rate. And 54.7 million of these are from House Bill 9. I'll talk to you about that in a minute. Tax ceilings, primarily those are frozen taxes, so that value increased 71.4 million compared to 2026. That's the biggest increase we've seen in tax ceilings in multiple years. So I went back 10 years and we haven't seen an increase like that. So those total values are removed from the no new revenue rate calculation, so 141 million that came out of our taxable value. And that taxable value is what is used to calculate that no new revenue rate. So without those increased exemptions, our tax rate would be nearly flat with last year. So we really did a lot of digging, forward, backwards, consulted some other people that we trusted who had worked through these scenarios before. So those things coupled with debt reducing is what is making our rate change. So you can see their adjusted taxable increase. So after removing the tax ceilings, it's 0.08%, so almost flat. So a little bit on House Bill 9, increased business personal property exemptions. So businesses that would normally pay taxes on personal property that they own usually have an exemption of $2,500. So House Bill 9 make that $125,000. So a lot of smaller businesses that only have $50,000, $75,000 in business personal property are paying zero. So it's a good move for businesses, but that share just got removed from our no new revenue rate calculation, which then dispersed that same amount over other taxpayers. So our lost value for tax year 2026 or fiscal year 27, 57.4 million. And then using the M&O rate, there's about 254,000 to the general fund. So because of minimal impact in prior years, this wasn't something that Kirk had identified as a single exemption line because it was really small. But now we're seeing it as an individual line, so we can point out that that change. We won't expect to see that in the future because this law has now changed, and so that will be out of the roll for next year. So this is just that House Bill 9 impact in another chart so that you can see 26 to 27. And of course, it's not all House Bill 9. There's some other things in there, but 57 million of that 69 million in increased exemption was business personal property. And this is just a look at how the tax ceilings grew. So 71.4 million or 6%. So you'll remember in prior years, we're hovering around 29 to 30% in frozen value. We're up to 32.2% now. So we figure the impact at the proposed rate of 5.46 is about 318,000 to the general fund and about 99,000 to the debt fund. This is just a look at historical net property tax value. So this is prior to removal of the tax ceiling. So you can see with frozen taxes in there, we had a growth of 2.4%. So you can see that when we remove those, that brings us back to that 0.8% growth in property tax value for calculation purposes. So about flat last year. And then this is also provided by KirkCAD, but it is a look at our median home value from last year to this year. So you can see a decrease there, not substantial, less than 1%, but you know, we didn't look at all properties, but this is just looking at median that was shared from KirkCAD both years. So impact to property owners. So I did two rates here. I did a change and an impact on the 5846 was what the budget is drafted at. And so you can see the voter approval rate there, and then the change from fiscal year 26 to fiscal year 27. And then moving over to the gray columns at the right, you will see the change that is being impacted by the disaster rate, should council choose to adopt all or part of that rate. And this does not assume any exemptions, so if there are tax ceilings in place or other homestead exemptions, those, it just is just a straight value for demonstration purposes only, and it only reflects the city of Kerrville taxes, no other taxing entities. So new value is not included in the no new revenue rate calculation. The value from new properties added to the roll is added after. So we kind of look at that as new money each year. Now, the second year that these properties are added to the roll, they're included in the no new revenue rate calculation again. So just for grins, I'll tell you there's 82 steps to get to the tax rate calculation. So it's 19 pages, I think, of multi-year calculations. And we really just make the best effort that we can to check, double check, ask experts, anybody that we can do just to make sure. And this year was very much an anomaly for us. And so we probably spent more time on this exercise than anything else we did with budget. You can see here the new properties that were added, and these are just the bigger ones. And then using the proposed M&O tax rate, this is about $234,000. So almost equal to the loss from the increases on the tax ceilings. Any questions so far?
Could I ask a question on
Please.
that page?
Please do.
So you said the future, it takes a while for these new developments to get on. What's out there that we're waiting on? Can you give me just an estimate of like either developments that we're working on or
Yeah,
values?
so, each year, whatever the value is as of January 1st. So for example, if there's a house that's half finished, right, and Kathy's here, she can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but if whatever the value is at January 1 is the taxable value. So if that's brand new value, then it's going to be in this new. And then the next year, then it's going to be considered in the no new revenue route calculation. Because remember, that's assuming equal properties generate the same amount of revenue. But to answer your question, multiple developments right now always happening. We did some annexation at Comanche Trace. I would expect to see some growth out there. We had Bluewood that just came on. Do you want to take this one? Michael knows a lot better on these than I do.
So you figure about 60 homes, anywhere between 50 and 60 homes for like Lennar as an example, right? And so their limit on their homes are $280,000, $284,000. So at 60 homes, it's $18 million, something like that. Comanche Trace houses are going to be higher value than that, less homes. So you probably have 15 to 20 homes from them, 60 homes from Lennar. DR Horton conversation is happening. Their whole next year is just going to be dirt work if they end up moving forward. So probably anywhere from, I'd say, 60 to 100 homes.
Thank you.
And Kirkhead's really good about providing us a list so that we can look at what areas are impacting our new value the most for those reasons right there. Where's the growth coming from? And then, what are the values? We average, now our average has gone up actually, but usually I would have told you about 35 million a year, but with these new developments, and it'll level out again, you can only go so far. So we have, big years and not so big years. So we'll just keep working through that. But 52 million is still very healthy compared to prior years. So we just had a really big year last year. Okay, sales tax. So, we talk about this a lot.
Julie,
And how do you,
Let me
yes,
interrupt you. Anybody else have questions on that section? Thank you.
Thank
Just
you.
want to make sure we got everybody.
Of course. So sales tax trends, this is probably, honestly, it's one of the most enjoyable things for us to work through because we're looking at every month what's happening. We're looking at sales taxpayers down to about the $1,500 level, and we're getting, over $1 million a month, give or take, on a given month. And so it's interesting when you look at trends to see that it doesn't really matter how much money you bring in, the expenditures trends are about the same. It's up in the same months and down in the same months every year. So patterns are the same, which is helpful because when you look over to the chart to the right, really that's what we use more than anything, and that's a rolling 12-month. And so you can see during, right during post-COVID and then during high inflation there where we had a pretty heavy sales tax increase, which is very much abnormal for our area. And then you can see the drop there when inflation got really high and consumer spending went down. So a lot of these things tie together with other things that we do. And so we like to use this as a kind of a marker for a lot of things. We're at about almost 5% rolling average right now. This time last year, we were at almost 0. So, it changes year over year, but you just kind of have to anticipate what could happen. But overall strong. Sales tax is Kerrville's second largest source of revenue. So the city of Kerrville gets a penny for every dollar spent of taxable goods within the city. So shop local where you can. Everything that we can collect from sales tax helps us offset other revenues that we might have to generate. So overall, looking really healthy there. So this is just a look at historical sales tax back to 2015. And again, you can see that spike right there during COVID. If you were here during COVID, you know that we got real serious about cutting out everything that, almost if it wasn't standing still, it wasn't getting spent. And so and then sales tax came back way better than we anticipated. But there was a lot of federal money pushed out into the community to support people who were being impacted by COVID. So over the time, you can see the leveling there. You definitely see a lower change, but, and we talked about this, those 12 and 13, 14% increases are not sustainable. So you never want to budget based on those. So Jacob started creating this chart for you guys over the past couple of years where you can really see, we can't go into detail about who's bringing in sales tax. You can see what categories are. So why it's important to spend in certain areas. So retail, of course, number one, and then food service, because we all like to eat out. So, so these really don't change very much. Once in a while, we'll see them flip, but not very much. So other major revenues for the general fund. This just gives you a historical look back to 2023 at kind of where money came from. You can see EMS services there on the left had some pretty big growth in 24 and then again in 26, but those are due to EMS charge changes that were allowable by the state and some insurance things that I don't understand, but Chief Maloney's staff understands and keeps track of that very well. Solid waste services, so again, those are just fees charged at the landfill, not at curbside. And then intergovernmental, we talked about that, and you can see just slight increases to that each year, and not a whole lot of change in franchise fees there, although we will have a slight increase in KPUB's franchise fee this year, but that is based on their estimates with their new updated rates. Any questions on anything general fund revenue so far?
No.
Okay, so we'll get into expenses then. So general fund proposed expenditures for fiscal year 27. So we're showing it here to you by category and by function. And as we continue to talk about, we're in the people business, so it takes people to provide the services that our citizens and guests expect from us. So personnel is our highest expense there at 71%. About, I'm going to mess this up, but I think about 60% of that is public safety related. I think that's on another slide. And then if you look over by function, it lays it out by general government, what's in public works, culture and recreation, and then of course public safety is 53% of the general fund budget. It's important on the general government part to understand what's in there because that is 26% of the budget, but that's going to include city administration, human resources, finance, IT, library, and then of course all of our transfers out, and that's what grows that section the most, and we'll talk about those in a little more detail later. And it's important to know that the transfers out could be divided by function if we really took the time to get that granular, and we tried that yesterday, but it was going to take a lot of work to say, well, we're moving asset replacement over. Well, of that, how much are we spending on each of these functions? And so that's something that we really want to start building out and getting to. And we do that if you look in the ACFR. Each year, we divide those out by function so you can see as a whole city what functions were supported by what dollars. So, and then in the culture and recreation, of course, that includes library and parks and a few other things. So $2.1 million of the budget there, that 3.5 is for maintenance. So that's going to include city facilities, everything from janitorial to regular ongoing maintenance, elevator repairs, HVAC, all of that. So it's not lumped in parks, but maintenance happens to report to parks. And so from a categorical standpoint, that is in that division. So the bottom chart here is the expenses by category, just with a little different look, and you can see the change. And again, you see the $945,000 change in personnel. $845,000 of that is from group insurance. So 3.3% overall personnel. You can see some reductions there in supplies and then in other expenses. The services, the increase there is from liability insurance, which was about $219,000 in liability insurance increase, and about $100,000 of that was specifically with the addition of the public safety facility. And then this was something we did a little bit different this year for our council. As we went through the process, it's been modified a little bit as we've gone along after some conversations, but this is a look at departments. And I'm happy to provide this in printed form. It'd be a little bit easier. But the main thing that I wanted to point out here is the change compared to 26. So you can see that some of our departments were actually lower, even including personnel. And then what percent of the total proposed budget each department represents. And then of each department, what is their total cost of personnel? And so you can see from this, of course, that police, fire, and emergency management are right up there at the top. It goes into priorities, so you can then kind of look through here and see how things are distributed. And then also what percent of each budget is dedicated to personnel, which I think I said that. And that's just important to know how many people support those services. So 71% again is personnel, 54 of the budget supports public safety. And then, of course, you can see the largest down there at the bottom. So I'm going to talk a little bit about streets funding, and if you have specific questions, I'm going to let Michael or David speak to those. So we have street maintenance budgeted at $2 million. As you know, and we've talked about bringing back budget amendments to you as we learn more about what repairs have to be made in what priority order. So this is something that they've really identified extensive street damage throughout their whole network within the city. And their staff is still really trying to prioritize what comes first and then where those buckets of money are going to come from. Even in the event that we do become eligible for FEMA PA, those are reimbursement dollars, so we would have to consider that. So they're going to continue to review operational capacities. What can their staff handle? What will need to be outsourced? And then estimate costs and contract out accordingly. So we're going to be seeing this grow, I think, over the next few months. And then David and his team will be talking to you guys about what their plans are, about how to best get those streets back usable for our citizens. So notable increases. So when we talked about the whole 1.6 million within the general fund, I wanted to point out where that money is. And so we talked about group insurance. The chart on the left shows group insurance since 2021. I think for anybody who has dealt with group insurance, even outside the city, has seen this increase. I know I've talked to multiple cities, but also multiple private employers, and they're experiencing the same kind of increases. So we've gotten a little creative this year. And so I know Dalton and Kim have worked countless hours trying to figure out how do we come up with some solutions to still provide quality care for our employees and hopefully try to find a way to reduce our overall costs. So a lot coming down the pipe on that still. I know you guys have been heavily involved in those conversations. So the chart on the right shows liability insurance, so $271,000 more than was budgeted in 26. But 125 of that is the addition of the public safety facility, and the rest is just natural. This is property and liability, I should say. So when you think about vehicles and other things, that's grouped in here as well. So pretty big increase in the last 7 years, but this is something that this year we took a pretty heavy hit. Other notable increases, this is something we've talked about in creating intentional challenges for ourselves, right? So, how important is it that we are transferring money out either to asset replacement or to capital improvement projects, facilities funds, and those things to be able to create some fund balance for future. So if we have, an HVAC go out, we're not having to dip in fund balance because we've set aside some money for that. That we're replacing our vehicles with intention and not, driving them until the wheels fall off as we were for a while. So what we've seen from this effort really since 2022, the city put together an entire asset replacement team, and they went out and crawled under every trailer and brought us serial numbers and everything they owned and brought it to us. And then they went and sold the stuff that they weren't using that they found through this exercise. And then they right-sized and said, we don't really need these trucks. We could use Gators instead. Or we don't need one per. We could do a two-man or things like that. So we've seen some pretty substantial changes just in spending patterns. With that, our vehicles have almost doubled in price, especially on public safety. When you look at ambulance costs in 21 compared to ambulance costs now, same thing with police cars. So we're trying to navigate those waters responsibly as we can, but wanted to point out just the intentional transfers there is a big part of what's causing that's $573,000 of the increase. So looking at asset replacement, this is general fund. So this is a lot of numbers, so I'll just summarize it over there to the right. Beginning fund balance is going to be about $1 million of everything that we budgeted in 26 is purchased by the end of the year. We have a proposed transfer in, so this will be into asset replacement, but out of the general fund. So that's important for people to understand that a transfer out of one department, one fund is an expense and a revenue to the fund that's receiving the fund. So it's not double accounting and it's not double cash, it's just one cash stream. Existing leases, about $190,000, and then proposed purchases, IT related. Charvy's getting the lion's share of things this year. We've put some things off over the past few years that it's time for us to address those. Police, $258,000, fire and EMS, $140,000, and then parks, you can see $150,000 and so on. So our plan internally, as we've had discussions, is some of these larger purchases are going to be held for a little bit until we know what cash is going to be needed to fund other things. So it wouldn't be that we would ideally want to defer these things, but this is a cash pot if we were to need it to be able to move some money around to take care of some repairs if need be. So we're bringing to you community support agreements for consideration. Couple of things that have changed since the proposed budget was filed. So as you know, we were visiting with Pronto and ACOG, their transportation system, and asking them to try and find some other resources to help fund their project so they could bring their budget in. So this year we budgeted $200,000. We're not going to hit that quite. Their expenses have been a little less than that. But for 27, they're proposing $100,000. So $100,000 cut from last year, but $50,000 of that has reduced since we met last. We just got that notification a few days ago. So we took the $50,000 in reduction there and increased the transfer out to CIP with the assumption that we might need those funds for flood repairs. So no net change to the budget, just a change in allocation of that $50,000. So this is their history of who we have funded. I do think, and I know we've talked about this, that Kerrville Pets Alive for 26 declined their funding because they have had pretty good luck in their fundraising efforts from other sources. We have not talked to them yet. Of course, this is still pending council approval on these things. Any questions so far on expenses?
Questions?
On the last slide, is that all of our organizations?
So this is only general fund. So we'll get
Okay.
to HOT in a little
Sorry.
bit. We have larger ones that are in HOT, but this is general fund supported.
All right, yes, that's correct. Sorry.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Okay, Michael, you have anything? Good? Okay, we're gonna move on to water fund. Trina usually does this, so I'm gonna do the best I can here with her information. So water fund, so 7 departments in the water fund. We talk about these a lot. 269,000 miles, 269 miles of water distribution lines, 200 miles of sewer lines, and then you can see different reclaimed water lines we support, lift stations, and all the things. So 183,000 utility bills generated from our office, about 11,000 a month, give or take. And we have 55 full-time employees in the water fund, so no change to that in 27. This is the same flood update that I showed you last time, but just wanted to highlight the things that were impacted within the water fund, so those expenses would fall into the water fund. So water, wastewater lines at Town Creek, we know substantial damage there. 5 lift stations were damaged, as well as a transmission line at Nimitz Lake. And I may not have them all captured, but those were the big ones that came kind of to the top of the list right away. So this is a forecast for the water fund, same kind of concept as in the general fund. We monitor this on a regular basis. The difference here is that fund balance is calculated on cash and cash receivables. This is a business type fund, so a little bit different procedure here, but still shooting for that 25% mark for reserve. So you can see the over under reserve here. Looking out, still pretty healthy fund balance all the way out to 2032, but obviously less cash than the general fund. But this is a lighter cash fund than the general fund. But just important to point that out that we would be dropping that percentage quicker the more money that we took out. But if necessary, we do have some monies here that we could utilize, hopefully on a temporary basis. So this is your water fund budget summary. So looking at all revenues and all expenditures from 25, 26, and then proposed for 27. And then, of course, putting the changes out to the right, both in dollars and in percent, so that you can see what those changes look like. We have some increases in water and sewer. So the water fund's about 97% consumption based with some other smaller components that feed the fund. We're looking at about a $780,000 increase, or 4.4%. When you go back and look at the forecast, and I'm not sure you can see it here as well as on the big spreadsheet, but we pay off a pretty big piece of debt in 2029. So we anticipate things flattening out a little bit as we get to the end of that debt life, depending on what happens in the future. So again, this is just depicting how water fund revenues are brought in, and so sewer and water about equal parts. And we've been doing some exercises to figure out actual cost of treating the water for drinking compared to treating the wastewater side, and they're pretty equivalent. We've been doing that for a couple of years just to see expenses in departments that have those separate functions to see if the revenues are coming in to support the expenses on each side. It's still the same fund, but it's just interesting to look at it that way to make sure that we're accurately reflecting revenue generation for the cost of providing each of those services. So 2027 water rate proposal, and we had 2 workshops on this. We are proposing a 5% increase to the base rate, so $1.27, and that will be per account. You can see that the large majority of our accounts fall in the 1,000 to 6,000 gallon range there. And then the fourth column over where it says dollar increase per thousand, that is your per tier proposed increase. So you can see no increase to your users that are using less than 1,000 gallons. So we have about 1,300 people there. And then a 18 cent per thousand increase on our average customers, about 5,500 or 61% there. And then over to the right, you can see the distribution of how many customers we have in which tier. And then higher increases on the higher volume users. So some residences do have an irrigation dedicated meter, but many don't. And so we know about how many gallons per household is being used per person. And so we have a lot of data to back that up. And so about 15,000 is where we look at. Anything over 15,000 becomes an assumed irrigation. And so that's where we assume the higher volume users is 15,000 and up. Anything below that, we really consider regular residential use. So that's just based on years of data collected and changes that we see from during different seasons. So sewer rate proposal, base rate only increase about $1.70 a month. No increase to the volumetric side. Low users won't have any change, of course, to the 1,000 gallons. And then it's important, and we constantly remind people that sewer averaging months are between December and February. So we base a sewer average for residential customers on the water usage for those months, since we don't meter sewer. So very important to make sure water consumption is low during those months. The assumption there is that most people are not watering during those months. So people who are watering with their regular residential meter. This is the combined rate. So we really try to take a look at what is the impact to the customer. And that's super important to us when we're working through these. You know, of course, our expenses for the water fund are pretty fixed. So it doesn't change a whole lot depending on how much consumption we have. So if consumption's low, the cost to operate the system is almost the same as if consumption is high. But we really look at how are things that we are proposing going to impact our citizens. And so if you look at the 5,400 gallon range, that is where the large majority, about almost 61% of our customers are. It's about $3.76 a month based on this proposal, about $45 a year. So you can see some other factors here, but that 5,400 gallon per month average consumption, that's an average household. We talked a little bit about reuse rates. Last year we had a long conversation about reuse rates. So we had multiple contracts that came on board when the reuse pond was built that were long-term contracts, and those rates were super low. I'm assuming with the understanding that they had infrastructure built out on their side and some expenses to get the water flowing. But last year we came back with several proposals to council to, now that some of those contracts are expired, and start putting reuse rates really closer to where they need to be able to support the reuse system. So we're projecting $435,000 in revenue. This is about double what we're used to seeing in reuse. So we feel like reuse is doing its part a little bit more. We'll see about double the revenue in 26 that we had in 25. So we're not proposing a change to the base rate this year, but increases to the individual tiers. So you can see those there. So proposed expenditures for the water fund, and we talked about this being a business type fund, so operating transfers out are pretty heavy. All of the revenues land in the water fund, and then expenses that pertain to the water fund are transferred out to the funds that they're paid out of. So debt service has its own fund within the water fund, but we collect all the revenues here. So that's a big part of our transfer out. Transfers out to asset replacement, also in there, facility fund, and then water CIP. So if you removed that, obviously the personnel percentage is way higher, but you can see how each of those categories holds its share of the overall $18.3 million. So this is just expenses by department, kind of like we showed you in the general fund. So with each of our departments here, and again, general operations houses all of that stuff that falls into one particular fund. So that's why that number is bigger. A large part of that is debt, which I'll show you in a few minutes, and then also asset replacement and CIP. So you can see some changes there by department, and then also percent of personnel and percent of each department to the entire budget. And what's interesting is, just like the general fund, when you look at percentage of the proposed budget that each department is comprised of, and then you go back and look at what the responsibilities are of each department, it really does align very well. So we've done kind of some backdoor just digging into, how monies are spent and our departments, really, I'm going to use the word producing in accordance with what their responsibilities are to the total budget. So it aligns with that very well. This is, again, historical expenses by category, so you can see them year over year. 2023 and then 2024, some pretty big increases there, but that's during really high inflation. And then we saw some leveling, late 24, 25, 26. We didn't see reduction in prices, but we weren't seeing the 35, 40% increases on things like pipe and things that this water fund uses on a regular basis. So this just gives you kind of a look at multiple years and what this fund has done. So this, again, is your transfer budget. I like to see this because we keep talking about transfer sustainability and what that really looks like. So these are your street views, transfer to the general fund, asset replacement, a little piece of development services. There's your debt service that you can see is a touch higher than it was in 26, just bigger payments this year. And then water capital projects, and then facility funds. So just really being intentional about where we're moving money for asset replacement and then future projects, of course, because it's easier to save up a little money for emergencies, but it does have an impact to the budget. But that's just an intentional thing that we've repeatedly been told by the community and by multiple councils is we have to start being intentional about moving money and saving money so we're not in a state of emergency when something happens. So this is just a look at water asset replacement so you can kind of see what our plan is. But again, these are things that we're going to hold on for just a little bit. We know we have some big expenses coming down the road. So if there's anything that's not an emergency, must do it right now, we're going to sit on that for a few months and then come back and revisit that with our departments as we keep kind of figuring out what we're going to do first as far as flood repairs. Okay, we'll go through any questions on water fund before I move on. So debt service. So this, I like to show this, and we use this in Citizens Government Academy a lot. Debt is a highly scrutinized thing in general. We all have debt. It just looks a little bigger in the city because the dollars are bigger. But it's not scary if it's responsible. And I think it's important to point out where debt is paid for. So outstanding principal overall, about $116.5 million going into fiscal year 27. And then you can see the amount paid for by property tax is that blue, the light blue there on top on the general fund side, $52.9 million. And of that $52.9 million in principal, $45 million of that, it's less now because we've made a few payments. It was voter approved bonds for public safety facility. Paid for by water and sewer, you can see the $40.2 million, and then EIC contributes $23.4 million in overall principal for our debt. So this is looking at the general fund. So we do have a AA rating from Standards & Poor's, which is a very healthy credit rating, and we've held that as long as I've been here, and I think even before that. The things with the asterisks on them on the left, and they're a little bit hard to see up there, but those debt series are paid for by sales tax, so 4B sales tax or EIC dollars, and the other components come from the general fund. So you see a $5.3 million total there, and over on the right, if you look for it, this is debt to be paid in 2027, $4.2 million from property tax, and then $1 million paid for from EIC that is separate from their sales tax revenue bonds that are paid for directly from their fund. So you see a proposed, I'm going to remove the word proposed because proposed isn't an option in this. It's going to take 0.1392 of a rate that is mandated to pay our debt prior to when we do anything else. So we have a policy that our debt rate cannot exceed 25% of our total tax rate. So we're about 24% of the overall proposed tax rate right now. And then the bottom is just the debt fund schedule. These are actual payments that are scheduled to go out year over year, and the different colors are for different issuances. So you can see there several drops where the yellow series drops off there in 2032, and then others continue to drop off after that. The dark blue there is public safety facility, which will be paid in full in 2052. And then here's your water fund debt service, quite a bit smaller in issuances, but about the same in payment. So you can see debt service payments for 2027, 4.9 million. Excuse me. And then you can see what we talked about earlier, where we have a pretty big series dropping off after fiscal year 29. So that will drop off significantly. But the water fund has a different credit rating of A+, and that's because these are revenue bonds for revenue bond consideration, not for property tax supported. So real quick, anything on debt service before I move on? 'Cause capital projects is not a whole lot. Okay. So capital projects, as we know, some of these flood projects will fall in here once we figure out what they're going to look like. Continuing into 2027, we have previously funded projects: Olympic Pool, Granger MacDonald Park, hazard mitigation. So this is a citywide generator that is grant funded. It hasn't kicked off yet. Trina and Kyle are still working through that process. We've been working through that for 3 or 4 years, something like that. So we're hopeful that we do have some conversations going back and forth that we might see some generators being pushed out for other facilities to be supported in the event of emergencies. Camp Meeting Bridge was paid for by the Community Foundation as part of flood recovery, and so that is in construction now. And then Charvey's working on a citywide phone system replacement. And then, of course, the airport land acquisition that is finalized, but we're waiting reimbursement on that. And we did get news that TxDOT approved that reimbursement in their meeting in August. And so we're just waiting on next steps for the FAA to approve that for final disbursement. So we don't really have a whole lot new. You do see an asterisk there. So the airport has asked for a capital fund contribution of $25,000. That's really designed to be a set aside. So oftentimes they'll have grants that they need cash to front the money. Most of their grants are reimbursement. So this has been to the county. The county did approve that, but it has to be city and county. And so we have a pretty good relationship with the auditor's office, and we talk pretty regularly. So if there are any differences, we will try to make sure we're being very consistent in what's being presented to each board, so that one of us isn't approving something and the other one not. So we'll communicate with them on this council's decision. And then flood 2025 and now 26 repairs are still TBD. Those will all fall into the capital projects fund, and so we'll allocate funding from various sources and transfer into this fund for easier tracking. And then lastly, water capital projects. So we have multiple water projects going on right now. You can see on the right the 2023 water revenue bond funded projects. So unallocated, we still have about $328,000 in that fund. I know these budgets change on a regular as we go through the process, but Kyle and David and Chris do a great job of keeping up with where we are in the bid process and then when these different projects are going to kick off. So I'm sure they'll be happy to provide you with a project update as they typically do. Other projects in progress on the left, funded from just a different pots of money. So EIC has contributed some money for improvements for Travis Street Pump. And then we have Quinlan Creek. Some of that is hopeful to be budgeted through the EDA grant that is in process right now. And then some other ones, as you can go down and see, we have a TWC loan that we're still working through remaining undesignated funds from savings from other projects. So, okay, any questions on those? I know that wasn't a whole lot on capital projects. Real quick on other notable funds, we talk about development services regularly. So for financial reporting purposes, development services is in the general fund. It is important to know that whenever we calculate fund balance, the expenses from this fund are also brought into that calculation. But you can see them here divided by revenues by category and then expenses by department. So building services, planning, code compliance, and then their general operations, of course, is the same as other gen ops. And when development services has a shortfall, then the transfer in comes from the general fund and water fund proportionately to the projects that are being supported by development services at the time for various reasons. Okay, taking a look at grants, we talked about this earlier. So $15.4 million in grants and donations is kind of what we're looking at. Fiscal year 24, 589, 25, 1.1 million, and then 26, 13.7 million. So, we automatically think of grants and flood recovery, but you can see here that we have grants in various other places. And I will say that fire and police do a great job of going and finding funding that also supports operations or particular asset replacement that needs to be taken care of that maybe we have a strain and can't get to right away. So they do a really good job of this. But this just outlines what we have going on right now with grants and things that are funded in what amounts. Hotel occupancy tax. So I think to your question, Delane, this is where we have some other community service agreements that are supported with hotel occupancy tax funds. So they have to meet certain requirements to be funded by the hotel occupancy tax fund. We are looking at potentially a different process going into next year about how these funds are allocated. So we'll be bringing those process ideas back to you to discuss how we're going to look at doing that in the future. So we're budgeting flat on revenue. We just don't know. We think this year is going to make budget, but we don't really know what to expect with everything going on. What is our visitor group going to look like and those kind of things. So our revenue, we're keeping flat, and then we'll track that. And of course, we don't commit money ahead for much on this unless we have a bigger fund balance. We do still have a healthy fund balance. You can see there at the bottom. Still have about 1.1 million after the end of 27 with all of these assumptions. So you can see here, these are our community support agreements. So Kerrville Convention and Visitors Bureau operations, that's one we talk about on a regular. If you remember last year, we asked Julie to cut her budget by 10% because occupancy tax was not performing, and she did. So we have brought that budget back up, proposed at 5% higher than last year, so recouping 5% of that budget, so still not flat with fiscal year 25. And then we had done some building renovations for them a couple of years ago, and you'll see that there is capital support. Community art program, that is rolled into CVB operations, and so some of that's going to come from the Arts and Cultural District area, which Julie and her team have agreed to take on oversight for that program, and I think they're going to be talking to you about that a little bit later in the meeting to get some feedback from you on that. And then all other CSAs are the same. There you can see we did have a new request for Water Street Festival that's put in at a little bit there to see how that goes and if those things will meet the requirements allowed by law. And so these, of course, are for consideration and discussion.
Of course.
Triathlon is in there. They are canceling for this year. We don't know for next year. That's something we hope will come back to the city. So if they do come back, then we do have an allocation in there for consideration in case they come back, which we're hopeful. And of course, we always have to adjust if the performance of the fund does not live up to the expectation. So if revenues are down, then those service agreements would be the first to be reduced. Any comments or questions?
Comments or questions? Go ahead.
I just have a comment.
Please.
I really appreciate the visual displays y'all have done a little bit different.
Oh, thank you.
It's very eye-catching and easier to digest, shall we say. But anyway, I know y'all have worked so hard on this, and I can't thank you and your team enough for the long hours, the stress, and the ultimate result, which I think you've done a great job. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We know it's a lot of numbers. We really tried to think about how a person who doesn't look at 5,000 spreadsheets every day sees things and tried to compile it in a way maybe there was a little bit more understanding and not so many people wanting to go to sleep as we work through this. So.
We're awake. Thank you for all hard work.
So next steps, you'll consider a resolution later to set the public hearing for both the budget and the tax rate. And we talked through some of those components in this for the people who may not be here for resolution. And then we'll open that up, of course, for more discussion during that resolution. And then September 8th is when we're requesting the public hearing on the proposed tax rate and the first reading of the budget. September 22nd would be the second reading for both. Happy to answer any questions now or in the next coming weeks if anyone has anything. Okay.
All right. Moving on to visitors forum. Do we have everybody signed up?
Yes, sir, we have 9. Laura Langston.
No, that was for a different meeting, apparently.
Okay.
I was in there, taking it back.
Who's next?
Denny Foster.
Jenny Foster.
Well, glad to be here on Hawaiian Shirt Night, so I guess that's good. So I'm Denny Foster. I'm a local resident. I'm a business owner. I'm on EIC. And a group of us got together, led by Mindy Windelay and Julie Davis from the CVB, to talk about what we could do to try to get more dollars spent in town. And we came up with a program. Julie's team came up with the program. It's fantastic. It's called Love Where You Live. And you're going to start seeing signs all over town like this, 18 by 24-inch signs that are going to be free to every resident and business owner to put in front of their business, to drive home the fact that we're looking for people to spend their money here locally, whether it be shopping, tourism, meals, it doesn't matter. Whatever you can do to spend your money here, it matters. And I'm just going to read a little statement here that we have. Love Where You Live is about turning community pride into community action. We all love what makes our community special, the people, the business, the character of the quality of life, and keeping it that way takes all of us. Every time we choose to shop, dine, stay, play, or do business locally, we're making an investment right here at home. Those dollars help support local jobs, local families, and entrepreneurs. They help businesses grow and create new opportunities, and they generate local tax revenue that supports the services, infrastructure, and amenities we all depend on. It's a simple idea. Where we spend matters. Love Where You Live encourages us all to think local first, not because we have to spend here every dollar locally here. It's because we can choose to, and that choice has an impact. Love Where You Live, shop here, support here, and invest here. So we just wanted to bring this to your attention, know that it's going to be going out. We hope that not only businesses will put this out in front of them, but residentials, going through neighborhoods, it'd be great to see these in the neighborhoods. There's no cost to anybody for these signs. And then there's going to be a whole education package that Todd Bach and Mindy are working on that explains when you spend money here locally, how it impacts the community. So
Thank you.
I appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Jamie Morales?
I'm going to read because I'm not the best public speaker. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak before you this evening. My name is Janie Morales, and I am a lifelong Kerrville resident. This is my hometown, a place I cherish deeply. I am also now a part of Rebuild National Disaster Survivors Association. The past several weeks have been incredibly challenging for me and for so many residents following the July 2026 flood. I witnessed the aftermath of the July 2025 flood, and I know there are residents who are still putting the pieces of their lives and homes back together when they were hit once again this year. My thoughts and prayers continue to go out to every person and family affected. I come before you this evening to respectfully plead for assistance, communication, and guidance in several areas. First, flood debris removal. I understand and am grateful that debris removal is scheduled to begin this week, but I'd like to know when the second sweep will come. Some residents have not been able to remove all of their debris. Some do not have the physical ability, financial means, equipment, or help necessary to tear down damaged portions of their homes or move everything to the curb. Please consider those residents who may not be ready when the first sweep comes through. We need to know that there will be another opportunity for them to receive assistance. Second, we need better communication and guidance for residents. I am once again grateful that Kerr Together was created following last year's flood. I know there are many people who have been displaced and who have urgent needs, and I have tried to be patient because I understand that resources are limited. I was fortunate not to be displaced from my home, but I still needed help. When I did sign up with Kerr Together, I believed I would receive more guidance, someone who could help me understand what resources were available, what steps I needed to take, and where to turn as additional damage was discovered. For example, I requested a dehumidifier. I called Kerr Together to make sure I was on the list for one, or possibly two, but I never received one and didn't even get any kind of follow-up. Thankfully, my brother did have one that I was able to use. I also did not receive guidance about what to do next regarding the damage to my home. I was told that it would take some time for someone to reach out to me. I did complete the Rebuild Community Foundation Needs Assessment and received an email stating that I would receive emergency funds. I went to Light on the Hill and did receive those funds. I am truly thankful for that assistance. However, it is a small fraction of a much larger amount that will be needed. Since then, I have discovered additional damage to my home, and I do not know what the next steps are. I do not know how to properly report that additional damage to the Community Foundation or through the TDEM ISTAT damage survey. I also called Public Works last Thursday and left a voicemail asking for someone to please contact me so I could find out where to report damage in my neighborhood, and I never received a call back. It has been confusing and quite honestly overwhelming. I personally feel like I have been left trying to figure out what to do next on my own. I have learned about resources through word of mouth and through the Rebuild National Disaster Survivors Association fair that was a couple weeks ago. I am grateful for those connections, but for many residents, it feels like another waiting game. Third, we need financial assistance. We need FEMA. We need help. I understand that there are processes that must be followed. I understand that there are many people in need, and I am grateful for every person and organization working to help our community. But it is challenging to continue being patient and grateful when it feels like help is not coming quickly enough. I still have moldy walls in my home. My HVAC system has mold. We're living in our home with the possibility that mold is circulating through our vents while we are also trying to stay cool in this terribly hot weather. I do not have the financial resources to address this problem on my own, and I know I am not alone. There are so many residents still waiting. Some are waiting for repairs, some are waiting for financial assistance, some are waiting for answers, and some are still waiting for a place to call home. Our homes are supposed to be our safe place. They are supposed to be our security, a place where we gather to live, love, laugh, and make memories with our families. For many of us, that sense of safety has been taken away. So tonight, I'm not only asking for myself, I am asking for all the residents who may not know where to turn, who may not have the resources to advocate for themselves, or who are simply exhausted from trying to navigate the process. We need clear communication. We need a coordinated system. We need follow-up. We need financial assistance. We need the FEMA assistance, and we need someone to help residents understand what comes next. Please do not let people fall through the cracks simply because they weren't able to navigate the system quickly enough. I am asking for you to please listen to the residents who are still hurting, still waiting, and still trying to rebuild. We love Kerrville. This is our home. We want to rebuild. We want to recover. We want to feel safe in our homes again. We just need help getting there. Thank you for listening. Sorry if I went over.
Sorry for your situation.
Amy Espinoza.
Hi.
I'm going to read from my phone. Good evening. My name is Amy Espinoza. I was born and raised in Kerrville. I lived here my entire life, and my family has been here for generations, probably about 4 generations. So when I stand here tonight, I'm not speaking as someone who just moved here or someone who does not understand this community. This is my home, these are my streets, these are my neighbors, and right now I'm frustrated and tired of watching families sit and wait while their lives remain in pieces and they are getting no answers. I had 2 homes affected by the flood, one on East Davis Street and one on Valley Drive near the Coronado area. One of these homes is where my niece, her husband, and their 6 children live. They do not have a home to go back to right now, and they are not the only ones. Last year before the flooding, the city of Kerrville came into our area and used equipment to dig out the drainage system area where the water flows through the park adjacent to my home. I live right next to the little park over there going to Coronado. Last year they came and they dug it up so water flowed more freely, and this year that didn't happen. From what I say, that work made a difference. From what I saw, that work made a difference. My homes and other homes on Valley Drive were not affected as badly. This year that work did not happen. And this year our home flooded. I am asking the city council why. If clearing and maintaining those drainage areas helped before, why was that work not done again? Who made that decision, and what is being done to make sure this does not happen again? Because we cannot keep calling these floods unavoidable if there are things that can be done to improve drainage and water flow before the water reaches our home. After the flood, families had to depend on each other. Friends, family members, volunteers, and organizations came to help us tear out sheetrock, remove insulation, and clean up the damage. We are grateful for that help. But help with cleanup is not the same as help with rebuilding. We had debris sitting in front of our homes. We were given vouchers for the dump. But then we were told that the dump would not accept certain damaged materials, including sheetrock and insulation. So I have to ask, what exactly were families supposed to do with it? We were told debris would be picked up. We received messages. We had to sign for it. But people are still waiting. Today I drove through Lawson Street, Shriner Street, and Morris Road. That's the area past Town Creek going out towards James Avery. I don't even think that area has been looked at. It is horrible out there. I mean, the one where you drive through Town Creek to get up the hill over there, that looks a lot better, but over there in the end, there's just everything's everywhere. They're not just these are not just piles of trash. These are pieces of people's homes. While we're waiting for debris to be removed, families are waiting for the materials they need to rebuild. This is the biggest issue I want this council to hear. People need sheetrock, people need insulation, people need lumber and building materials. People need skilled workers and volunteers who can help them rebuild. And right now, many families are simply sitting and waiting. I see work being done at the park. I see work around the bridges, which I know we need the bridges, and other public areas. I understand those projects matters. But I need to ask the council something. What good is a rebuilt park to a child who has no home to go back to? My niece and nephews do not need a prettier park more than they need a safe place to sleep. Our families need homes. The people in these neighborhoods are not asking someone else to do everything for them. Many of us know how to repair a home. My own brother-in-law has been working to fix our home in my mother's house. But there comes a point where hard work is not enough if you cannot get the materials. We are willing to work. We need the city and the community to help make rebuilding possible. Also, I want to address what happens when families are offered help, but they are told they cannot touch or repair anything themselves because they may lose their assistance. I was talking to one of my cousins. He lives down there by Lawson Street over there in the Ville, and he said that basically they told him he had fixed in the house, but he didn't do the flooring, and whoever came in to help them, which we're grateful for, he said he wanted to start, doing little by little, and they were like, you can't touch that, because if you touch that, we're not going to help you. And I'm like, okay, but you're trying to help. The lighthouse has helped, and I'm grateful for that, the assistance they provided, including helping my housing. But temporary housing for a couple weeks does not solve the problem when the home itself may take months to rebuild. And this is where I need this council to look beyond today. What are we going to prevent this to happen? Because if we do not fix the drainage problems, it's not going to help. If you go up to the Croc Center, right there on George Court, I don't know if any of y'all ever been there, the water drains from there. There's always been two big old drain systems. The thing is, okay, we've got it at the end of, what is that, Pascal? You got the drain systems that go down there. Go over to Hay Street, go down, and look at McFarland. There's 4 little areas where the drainage goes, and I'm talking about this small. That's where the drainage goes, so we wonder why all those houses over in our area are flooding when there's nowhere for it to go. So that's why our homes are getting flooded. I just want to know what the plan is for the 2026 people, because there are still people in 2025 that still don't have their homes. Tonight, I'm asking this council for action. Not another meeting, not another promise, not another plan that forces only what looks good from the outside. I am asking for a clear plan to help families rebuild their home. I am asking for access to sheetrock, insulation, lumber, and other building materials. Please do not forget the people who live behind the piles of debris. Do not focus so much on rebuilding things that we can rebuild later. We need to rebuild people's homes. That's it. Thank you.
Bud Bolton.
Good evening. I appreciate y'all, the time to speak with y'all. My name is Bud Bolton. I'm a business owner here in Kerrville. Been here for many years. I own heavy equipment and steel erection business, and my wife's a veterinarian. Lost our home last year in the flood in Ingram, our entire home, and donated all my equipment, went into the river bottoms, and stayed down there until November. Ended up buying a little house right here in town. On Lois Street, the corner of Lois and Lewis Street. We bought us a little house here in town. We're half a mile from the river. Started remodeling our little house back around January when I came out of the river bottoms with all my heavy equipment. And we did some remodeling on this house, spent a lot of money on it. We got the flood in May when the river didn't flood and the town didn't flood, but we flood at our house right there. then of course we got the flood this year. We got the flood, just the recent one too. But the reason I'm standing here in front of y'all is because it's about the flood in May. When the town didn't flood in May, and we're 3/4 of a mile from the river, our houses are all flooding on that street. We had about $35,000 in damage in May in that little flood in May. When the river didn't rise, and we didn't get that much rain, our houses still flooded on that street. So after talking to my neighbors there, Dr. Speck and everybody that's right there around me, they said it's been doing this since that's been a street, it's been doing this, and it's never been addressed. Well, I'm here to address it because we lost our home last year. I dedicated my whole business to the city of Kerrville until December with a lot of heavy equipment, and we're moving into town, and now our home's flooding in the dead center of town, and we're not even close to a creek. We're not at Gibson's, we're not right on the creek, and we got 4 foot of water in our house. But we got that in May also when the river didn't flood. It's a drainage problem. I've got great videos and everything. It's a drainage problem on that street is what it is. And it's been doing it for many, many years. It's just that nobody in my neighborhood, until I move into the neighborhoods, ever had it to stand up and address this. So my thing is, I know a lot of people got flood damage. We did last year. Like I said, we lost a $400,000 home last year right down the river. So my thing is, I'm here speaking for my neighbors on my area right there. My Dr. Speck, that's right behind me. I'm right there by where the old Sears building used to be. I'm right there at the corner of Lois and Lewis. We just finished remodeling this house, and I understand we got a lot of rain. We got 31 inches at our house right there in town, and I understand all that, and things are going to happen, and floodwaters are going to rise. I understand that. I'm in the heavy equipment business my whole life, and I understand all that. But when we got the flood in May, when the water didn't rise in the river, what it rise 4 inches? And we got 3.5 foot on our street. It's a drainage problem, and I got really good videos to show these streets where I'm at the corner at that intersection, and I got my neighbor right there that's got 5 houses on the same street, rental houses on that street, and all his are flooding. And I've got really good videos to show that it's not the amount of water that's coming down, it's not the river flooding, it's the drainage system on that street. And they said it's been that way, Dr. Speck said, for 45 years, but the city's never done anything. So that's why I'm standing here, because we're kind of at a crossroads now. We done lost one home last year, and now we had $45,000 in damage just this last flood this July. Then we had the damage and flood from the one in May. And I just want to bring this to everyone's attention, to y'all's attention, to see if maybe I even addressed the street department. I came in and talked to Joel, one of the main guys at the street, back in May. He said he was down in there, but I've got a lot of neighbors that's having a lot of damage done, not from the amount of rain, and it's not from the river, it's from the drainage. It's the city drainage right there. So I just wanted to bring that to y'all's attention, and I'm speaking for all my neighbors, so and I appreciate y'all listening to me and everything. But I'm at 400 Lois Street is where we're located at. So, and I appreciate your time.
Of course.
Jacob Shively.
Mayor. I wish I could say as a lifelong resident, I've been here 45 years. Not quite as long as you, Mr. Herring, but I came here to address, being here for 45 years, I've seen a lot of floods. I've seen all the ones when I went to high school here, junior high, Before that, I saw the 78 flood. I was a camper at Camp Rio Vista. Saw that. I've never seen anything like this. Devastating. But what we have here, I have, between my wife, my daughter, and we have 5 houses in that neighborhood right there. Where Lois and Lewis is. Okay? We can put the watershed, the problem is the watershed that's coming off of like West Water, all the way up there, the watershed that runs down the hill, 5 Points, all that, coming down, the watershed off of it comes down to all those drains. And we can put 500 more drains in there. It's not going to do any good. The problem we've got here is we've got a drain that is the state drain. It runs under 27. Now we can put as many drains as we want into this drain, but this drain is grossly inadequate. From what I understand, it is all going into a 28-inch drain. Okay, and then when that happens, you know, what's it gonna do? It's gonna back up. It's gonna start backing up down to 5 points, all all the way over to Gibson's. And then the other thing that I wanted to address is Town Creek. Well, Town Creek is a major drain for the city. Now, if we have roots growing up in our septic system and it starts backing up sewage into your house, what are you gonna do? You call Roto-Rooter, right? Well, we need to address the invasive trees. Cedar trees are not a tree that should be in our creek bottoms. Now, I'm all for trees and saving trees and for, you know, the big cypress trees, but, you know, like I just heard the young lady say, if you go down Town Creek and you go out there and look where the ragonals are out there, just drive out there. Any of y'all, drive out there and see the cedar trees that are in the debris. That debris that piled up on the bridge is from Town Creek. We need to get in there and we need to clean it. We need to clean all these little invasive cedar trees out that are going to grow up to be nothing, because we got to get this drainage flowing, okay? Because all that debris piled up on the bridge right there at Gibson's. And when it piled up on the bridge at Gibson's, the water overflowed onto the road. Where did the water go? It flowed right down there to 5 points, to this drain that's inadequate. This, I'm not placing blame on the city council. This isn't, I want y'all to be the voice for our community. We need you to speak up and get this state drain fixed. The drain should be just as big as the drain that's over there near Del Norte that they're fixing, that they're just not ever working. You drive by there and they're always texting. But that's a 6-foot drain right there. I mean, that's getting the same watershed from West Water. And it comes across and it goes across Lois and goes through right there by the Town and Country and then flows into this big drain. Well, I don't know the exact size of the drain, but I am pretty sure that I've heard that it's 28 inches. So this needs to be addressed. We need to get the state. You need to talk to the governor. You talk to something, because our insurance. So I went to go make a claim on our houses. They're not going to cover it because it's flood. Okay. And then my wife's house, not a claim on it. Her coverage went up double on the house right across from Bud Bolton's. Okay, it doubled in price without a claim because of all the floods. Okay, and drainage problems. So that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. I wish our insurance paid out like y'all got $5 million, but it's not paying out. And if my rent houses are damaged, I don't have income. Okay, I retired. I'm retired here. I opened up a record service. I retired, sold, went to school. But this is my income. And if these houses, I'm not getting income in it, I can't hard time paying my taxes. So I'm just asking y'all, please be our voice. Thank you.
Kevin Morales.
Thank you. So, my name is Kevin, and I live here in Kerrville. I am here once again to ask for the discontinuation of all current or new ALPRs, because the thing is, freedom is fragile, so anything that could harm our God-given rights, including the ALPRs, should make us concerned. The ALPRs are a direct harm to our right of privacy and the Fourth Amendment rights. And bottom line, I wouldn't trust a company where one of their investors is a direct friend with the man in the files. If you know, you know, and thank you.
Dan Parasini.
Evening, Mayor and council members. Well, it's that time of year again for Kerrville Flags of Honor, which this year will be September 11th through the 13th at the River Star Park at the Hill Country Youth Event Center. You have the flyers. Anybody else would like a flyer? Please come out and see our event. This year is going to be pretty special. If anybody has never seen it, we fly 500 of these American flags in perfect rows for 3 days. And this event is to thank the community for supporting our nonprofit called Gunny's Warriors, which is a veteran-based nonprofit. So this is our 4th year. This year will be special for 2 reasons, because it's America's 250th birthday, and as Mr. Harris had stated, 9/11, the 25th anniversary. So on Friday, September 11th at 8:45 in the morning, the ceremony starts, the 9/11 ceremony starts the same timeline as back east when the Twin Towers were hit. Brad Wilson is hosting this special event. Please come out if you can. There'll be a strong presence of first responders. There'll be speakers, and just honoring the folks that we lost on 9/11. And then the Flags of Honor ceremony will be Saturday, the 12th at 11 a.m. The field is open 24 hours a day. It's free to the public. And if you want to see something spectacular, come out and see these flags at night. You can come out at midnight, 2 a.m., walk the flags. The flags are for purchase. We have, you get everything you see here. And the theme of our event is Honor Your Personal Hero. And so we will dedicate the flag that you purchased to your own personal hero. We have 3 speakers this year. As always, Mayor Herring has agreed to speak. Dalton Rice has agreed to speak, and we're hoping to get the 3rd one online. It's very special. You have to experience it. And again, this is our way of thanking the community. It's open, like I said, 24 hours a day. And you're welcome to come out and hear about our leaders talk about their own personal heroes. So if you want to know who Mayor Herring's personal hero is, come out at 11 a.m. on Saturday the 12th. And we thank you very much for your... Oh, yes, George Eichner, as always, will play taps at dusk over the flags. That's a very special time too. And we just want to thank you all for supporting us. And we're very proud this year to, we started last year. We originally started under the umbrella of Colonial Flag. They supplied the flags. There was a lot of fees with that. And we're very proud to let you know that we have taken on the project. That's why it's called Kerrville Flags of Honor now. And that means that more money will go back into the community. And we have chosen Mercy Gates Ministries and together with Hill Country Veterans as our beneficiaries this year. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
George Broody.
So I'm not going to speak about city business. I'm just going to ask to say a few words about someone we lost a few weeks ago who I served on council with, and he, I was always impressed by the style in which he led and the way he allowed us to disagree, but it was never a personal thing with him. And I'm speaking of Warren Ferguson. He was also just really a good sport. So I'm gonna tell a couple funny stories about him. One was, so he was on council before I got on council, and I didn't know him from Adam until I got on council. But they used to have the cow chip toss at the, what was it?
Courthouse.
Cowboy
Yeah.
Sometimes they
Yes,
used to.
Cowboy Breakfast. And the county had been winning it over and over again until Warren decides he's going to go take it on, and he brought it back. And so we kidded him about it. He won the title the 1 year I was on council with him, and we kidded him about it. We gave him honors while we were in here. Thanks for bringing the championship back. And but also this other thing, when I say about being a good sport, I mean, we're all up here and we disagree on stuff, but again, he was never disagreeable. but he had this plaid jacket that was like a red, blue, and light blue plaid jacket. And if anybody's seen Caddyshack, Rodney Dangerfield had a plaid jacket, right? And Rodney Dangerfield being who he is, I said to Mr. Ferguson, I said, do you understand what you're wearing there? And he wore it to council meetings a few times. And I explained to him that it reminded me of Rodney Dangerfield and from Caddyshack, and there was this line, okay, I'm going to say it because it's not a bad phrase, but they're sitting around a table in Caddyshack, and someone passes gas, right? Okay, so Rodney Dangerfield goes, oh, did someone step on a duck? Okay, well, I got Mr. Ferguson on his day that he was being thanked for his service and leaving. I was the one who was actually presenting the certificate to him, and I asked him if he would wear his jacket. And I told him before the meeting, I said, if you don't mind, would you mind saying who sat on a duck, right? So he comes to the microphone for me to explain it, give him a certificate. And I said, now we practice this, right? And he goes, oh yeah, has anybody seen a duck? And I said, no, I said, that's not it. And I said it to him again, and he said, oh yeah, did somebody see the duck go by? And I was like, no. And so finally he gets it, and he just says, who sat on a duck? And he says it just like that, and everybody laughs. And I don't think he ever saw Caddyshack, but he went along. He went along with me on it, and I just thought that's pretty cool. But the main thing I really liked about him on council was, a lot of times in this room and other places around the country, when people debate issues, it gets personal, but also you feel like you're talking to not just that person, you're talking to the people that they think they're supporting, and it's their agenda. With him, it was just you and him. You were talking about what he was really talking about and what you were talking about, and we were able to get things done. And I miss that. And whenever I think of my time on council, I always think of him, and I especially think of the plaid jacket. So thanks.
Thank you.
That's the end of the citizen speakers.
I will concur that Warren Ferguson was quite a guy. He was a good guy.
George, I have a plaid jacket, and I will not wear it to council. I just want to let you know.
All right. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. All items are considered routine, but can be removed and can be passed in one motion, but any item can be removed at the request of a council member, of staff, or a member of the audience. Would anyone care to have an item removed from the consent agenda?
I would like to remove item E, please.
4E. Anything else? Now, we are required to read in the ordinances on the consent agenda, and there are quite a few. And in the spirit of cooperation, I will read the first one. And then y'all can fight over the rest of them. Ordinance number 2026-13, second reading, an ordinance amending Chapter 60 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Kerrville, Texas, zoning code by changing the zoning of a property known as 1273 Bandera Highway from mixed-use zoning district, MU, to general commercial zoning district, C3, and providing other matters related to the subject.
Thank you, Mayor. 4B, Building Code Ordinances. Ordinance number 2026-14, second reading. An ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Kerrville, Texas by adding Article 8 to Chapter 26, providing for the adoption of the International Property Maintenance Code, 2024 edition, as published by the International Code Council, Inc., providing certain local amendments to said International Property Maintenance Code, containing a cumulative clause, containing a savings and severability clause, providing for a penalty of an amount not to exceed $2,000 for each violation of any provision hereof, providing for an effective date and ordering publication. Ordinance number 2026-15, second reading, an ordinance amending section 26-32 of Chapter 26, Building and Building Regulations of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Kerrville, Texas, in its entirety by adopting the International Residential Code 2024 edition, for 1 and 2 family dwellings, regulating the construction, enlargement, alteration, repair, removal, demolition, conversion, occupancy, equipment, use, height, area, and maintenance of all 1 and 2 family dwellings and multiple single-family dwellings, townhouses within the city, adopting local amendments, providing for a penalty for violation of any provision hereof, containing a cumulative clause, containing a savings and severability clause, ordering publication, providing for an effective date, and providing other matters relating to the subject.
I can do this one. Oh, you got it.
We
Good.
got it.
Okay.
Ordinance number 2026-16, second reading, an ordinance amending section 26-31 of chapter 26, Building and Building Regulations of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Kerrville, Texas, in its entirety by adopting the International Building Code 2024 edition, regulating the construction, enlargement, alteration, repair, removal, demolition, conversion, occupancy, use, height, area, and maintenance of all buildings or structures except for 1 and 2 family dwellings and multiple single-family dwellings, townhouses, and including the National Electric Code as referenced herein within the city, adopting local amendments, providing for a penalty for violation of any provision hereof, containing a cumulative clause, containing a savings and severability clause, ordering publication, providing for an effective date, and providing other matters related to the subject.
I get this one.
Okay?
Ordinance number 2026-17, second reading. An ordinance amending Articles 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, Chapter 26, Building and Building Regulations of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Kerrville, Texas, by adopting the International Existing Building Code, National Electric Code 2023 edition, International Plumbing Code, International Fuel Gas Code, International Mechanical Code, International Energy Conservation Code, and the International Swimming Pool and Spa Code 2024 editions, unless otherwise stated. As to buildings, structures, systems, and other applications within the city, adopting local amendments to each code, providing for a penalty for violation of any provision hereof, containing a cumulative clause, containing a savings and severability clause, ordering publication, providing for an effective date, and providing other matters related to the subject.
Ordinance number 2026-18, second reading, an ordinance amending Chapter 50, Fire Prevention and Protection of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Kerrville, Texas, by adopting the National Fire Prevention Association 101 Life Safety Code 2024 edition, adopting the International Fire Code 2024 edition, adopting the National Fire Protection Association 1194 Standard for Recreational Vehicle Parks and Campgrounds 2026 edition, adopting local amendments to said codes, providing for a penalty for violation of any provision hereof, containing a cumulative clause, containing a savings and severability clause, ordering publication, providing for an effective date, and providing other matters related to the subject.
And the last ordinance, 4C, ordinance number 2026-19, second reading. An ordinance amending in part ordinance number 99-18 as amended by adopting revised rate schedules for residential services and distributed generation rider, containing a cumulative clause, containing a savings and severability clause, and establishing an effective date.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're available for parties. All right, is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Oh, go ahead, Kent. I can't see you, so go for it.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I second.
Items 4A, 4B,
C, D, F,
G,
G, H,
I,
I,
and
J.
J. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? In favor, so vote. And it passes unanimously. 4E.
Have a good night.
Of course.
Sorry I didn't get the memo on the shirts. If I'd worn my Hawaiian shirt, I would have gotten through the consent agenda. But anyway, thank you actually for allowing me to come speak to you guys tonight. Last year I approached you guys. I had been in my position for 2.5 months, so I didn't know a whole lot. Julie and Trina have helped me out over the past year, and we've gotten through a lot of stuff. This budget that we put together here represents, I think, a really good picture of the health of the airport right now. We currently, our revenues are above what our expenditures are. We're planning on transferring out money and putting it in our fund balance along with the dollars that we would like to receive from the city as well as the county. Our total budget is just under $800,000, or our revenues are. Our total budget is about 50,000 less than that. I think we've got everything covered, all the insurance increases, and that kind of stuff. We're looking to do some things to lower some of that in the next year. Basically, I really don't have anything to propose to you because, again, we're covering our costs at this point with the help of Julie and Trina. So that's all I've got really for you, unless there's any questions. I know you guys took me off the consent agenda, so I'm sure there's questions.
Mr. McKinney.
All right, so I'm the liaison from the council to the airport board. I attend the airport board meetings. And the airport's one really valuable asset to the community. And I think lots of good things are going on there. However, we had a new long-term plan approved this year. A lot of work went into that, and lots of good things on the horizon. And within the last year or so, we were upgraded from a regional to a national airport.
Yes, sir.
And so that's all really good. But for several years, we've not funded anything for the airport. And I think we should continue that, not funding. They have opportunities for income. They had opportunities within the last year to address their hangar rents and to increase their income, and they, in my opinion, did not much to increase their income. And so for now to come in and ask for some money from the city when we have been given it, I think that's not good. So I would as far as the budget 47, which is a general operations budget,
yes, sir.
I think that's fine. I think they're doing fine there, and I think they're doing good to set aside some of their own money for future needs. But in addition, we're really not in very good position to be handing out more money. Our general fund is, we just looked at the budget, but that doesn't really even take into account the flood information, the flood expenses that we're going to have. And so I would recommend that we do not contribute money for the Fund 48 for future expenses. I think we support the airport, and we loaned the money until they got reimbursed, and we're about to get that money back reimbursed. I think certainly if they have some cash needs from short term, we should support them. But I don't think we need to get back in the habit of giving them money each year. I think they can do it on their own.
Well, is there a motion to that effect?
I would move that the city not make any funding available to the airport for their fund number 48.
Sure, of course.
Where on the budget is this line item?
If you go to the last page of my presentation, it's on page 4. It shows up under our Fund 48 under capital. Is fund balance. Since it's a new line that we're trying to add so that we can go fund smaller projects before we get reimbursement from from TxDOT Aviation. It's 48,600 with no follow-ons there. That this money would be used typically to do a project that we were looking then to get reimbursed from the state on. It gives us a fund balance to be able to do smaller projects without having to scrape and borrow from our other, try to get to the end of the year accounts. And it just locks in a little more independence for us with your supervision. We would not spend these funds without coming forward to council and to the commissioner's court. We want, these funds would still have to be approved. It just means that we'd have access to go get serious about projects before they start biting us in the rear. We had one of those this last month. We have a system called the AWOS, which is Automated Weather Observation System. Ours is archaic. We are in the process of trying to replace it, or we are going to replace it. We've got the paperwork all in place now and everything, and figured out how to fund it. If we had these funds earlier, we could have started this project 2 years ago. Instead, we've been band-aiding this piece of hardware together. At the same time, we had a frequency change. This system doesn't only put out the weather as it stands right then, it also has an ability to put out a note to aircraft. The FAA implemented a frequency change 3.5 weeks before they were supposed to. All of a sudden, we had aircraft on 2 different channels, and had our AWOS been up and running, we could have notified the inbound aircraft that we were on a different frequency that we have been on over the last 20 years. We made it through. Lots of discussions with the FAA in the last 3 weeks. I've talked to more FAA guys than I knew existed, but that's okay. Everybody from Fort Worth to Oklahoma to Houston. And the FAA and us, I think we both have a better understanding of what happens with electronic databases, and it probably won't happen again. We just ended up being the poster child, and that hardware went down. Not saying that hardware wouldn't have gone down had we had the $25,000, but it would have given us the opportunity to replace the hardware earlier, is where I'm going. So.
But you say you still have to come here to ask us for the money.
Absolutely.
Well, why don't we just do that anyway? I mean, I don't know why we need to budget it right at a time.
Well, like I said, it gives us something to have and to say, you
But
guys.
not unless you come back and ask us for it.
No, sir. And I don't mind coming back here.
Okay.
So what's your motion then, Kent?
My motion is, as I said, is really not to support that. The motion is not to support with.
To approve the budget except for that one.
Except for that item, except for contributions to their
Our
Fund
fund
48
balance.
budget.
Yeah.
Second. Any other discussion?
Yeah. Where was the county on this when they met for their budget on the airport? Because it's a joint.
They approved it yesterday, yes, sir.
They approved it yesterday?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
They got more money than we do, I think.
That's a funny thing.
Mr. Harness, do you want to weigh in?
I don't. I'm here to answer any questions. It's hard to read in your packets, I think. There's 2 specific line items that we have funded, and we do a 50-50. When we fund these things, it's 50% us, 50% the county. So it's an odd number too. It's $5,556 for what's called RAMP, which is Routine Airport
Maintenance Program.
Maintenance Program, thank you. And then $25,000 in there, and that is just simply designated for fund balance. So I fully understand where we're at financially, and so I mean it's not an imposition to take $25,000 out of that budget for their fund balance. The RAMP grant, I think they could probably cover through their own means as well.
Yeah, and we try.
Yeah, so it's not it would require an amendment from, everybody's going to have, this is the weird thing about owning it with somebody else. It's a government entity as well, but that's not your issue, so, yeah.
Ms. Smith.
Thank you. Is the 48,700, that's the total, so that's like
No,
what
ma'am,
you're
that's
saying?
our transfer out of our revenue account. Our operations. That's what we're putting into our fund balance.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And completely separate,
It's these two months.
Helps if I look at the right page. I'm looking at the wrong page. I was looking at this page.
It's 25,000.
I was looking at this one.
No, that's not it. This is the part. This is the Fund 48. This is the capital improvement.
I was just looking at the line item. Right. Completely separate. Are y'all doing like a upgrade or something to your offices?
No, ma'am. We are in the same offices we've been in for 20 years,
Okay.
25 years.
There's a substantial increase in office equipment rental from 2,000 budgeted last year to 29,000 this year.
Office equipment rental.
Is that the mower?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. That is part of our that's the mower that we leased for a 3-year lease.
Okay.
And that's where that is showing up on the equipment. The rental that we pay to John Deere is that increase that you see from last year.
They used to hire it all done, and now they bought the equipment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or they leased the equipment.
So I'm sorry. I apologize for not
No, you're
jumping right on that.
No,
I
it's
had to
okay.
think a minute.
Well, it does look like you've reduced some of your, at least budgeted 2026.
Yes, ma'am. We've, as I said at the beginning,
Quite a bit,
I've
actually.
learned a lot. Last year, I will be quite honest, the airport manager before me had done some stuff since Mary Rohr had been the airport manager. Last year's budget I really put together 5 weeks after I got in office, based on an idea and some growth numbers. Of course, we dealt with the same issues you guys dealt with in July of 25, while we were doing a major TxDOT funded repaving of our runway. My numbers did come down this year. Julie told me what she was forcing on the city staff, and there's no reason that I shouldn't have gone through my numbers the same way. And I think Julie and Trina expected me to do that, or they were going to kick me out of the building. So that was the way Julie started out a meeting one day, and I said, "Yes, ma'am." So we really scrubbed the numbers to get down, using the past year and using some hard numbers for what it's costing us to run the facility that I just didn't have the knowledge of the year before. So my 15 months there helps as well. Yes, ma'am.
Here's the thing, I'm grateful that Kent has taken on the responsibility to serve as our liaison on that board.
Oh,
And so
absolutely.
I'm gonna lean pretty heavily on any recommendation he makes to us, because he's our eyes and ears on that board.
Yes, sir.
And honestly, I'd rather the $25,000 be in our fund balance rather than your fund balance.
I can appreciate that.
So I'm gonna support Kent on this. I don't know what the rest of the council will do. But if you have a need for it, you can always show up here and ask for it. But
Yes, sir.
I don't need you to budget that request ahead of time, in my opinion. All right, we have a motion, second. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor, so vote. And it's 3-5. That's unanimous. So, if that need arises, you know
We'll
where
be
we
back.
are.
Yes, sir.
Cheapest ticket in town. Come see us. All right, thank you.
I'll wear my Hawaiian shirt next time.
All right.
Thank you.
Item 5A. Attached.
Good evening, council. Well, this is an annual issue that we have to address with Atmos and their rates that they charge our residential and commercial customers here in the city. As you know, we are one of 189 cities who are part of a group that has the ability to negotiate our rates with Atmos. Unfortunately, that doesn't keep the amount down all the time, but this time Atmos requested $273 million in additional infrastructure that would have been shared by the cities, and our group was able to get that down to 260. With that, they did additional negotiation, but it was unsuccessful. So they are proposing that all of the cities part of this group approve the rate that is resulting from this negotiation. And that rate would be an additional $13.37 per residential customer per month and $44.82 per month on commercial customers. This action has to be taken before October 1st. That is basically the nuts and bolts. I'll be happy to answer any questions y'all have.
So for the public, we are part of a group of communities that negotiate with Atmos.
Correct.
We try to stick together.
Correct.
Force concessions from Atmos.
Correct.
However, we choose not to go with the group, we're on our own.
Right. If we were not part of this group, Atmos would use what's called the GRIP process, and that's per city. And so each city would have to go through that GRIP process with Atmos. And according to what has been told to our group, I know that's a lot of acronyms, but we don't use the GRIP process with our group. And our group has been told that that GRIP process that Atmos has used with other cities who are not part of our group are much higher than what we're getting in this particular negotiation.
GRIP is well named, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And we would have to pay the legal fees, is that a correct statement?
In this particular negotiation, they have actually, Atmos is going to pay our steering committee's attorney's fees. If you voted no on this and Atmos appealed, they would appeal up to the Railroad Commission, and then we would have to pay their attorney's fees. But pursuant to this negotiated settlement, it's my understanding that Atmos is actually paying our group's attorney's fees.
Well, the theory is that as a group, we can negotiate better than we can on our own. I mean, that would make sense for any kind of situation. So we kind of have to trust, I think, that the group is doing the best they can for us.
But if you don't like the group, they're gonna give you the grip.
Yeah, well, I don't like the grip.
All right, guys. Is there a motion then on?
I would move that we. I've got questions on this.
Please, go
ahead. William, I got your email, thank you, explaining all of this. So basically what we're taking right here is if you have the only provider for gas in Kerrville, only, I'm gonna say that again.
It is a monopoly, yes.
If you got a gas range in your house, you're fixing to pay $13.37 more a month for one appliance in your home. Or if you're a business, you're gonna have an additional, let's say $45 a month. Why can't we go to the Railroad Commission and say, can we have somebody else bring gas into Kerrville so we can have some competition? And I'm not asking you, I don't expect you to know the answer, but Michael and I have had this discussion. You know, I'm gonna tell the story, but it's just because it's sad. But you can see what they're doing over on Hill Country Drive right now. They totally destroyed that road and everything with it. Well, at one point in time, they were out on 173 doing the same thing in the median or in the easement. They had all their trucks and everything in the median, in the shoulder. You couldn't see to get out of a neighborhood. You ask them politely to move their vehicles out of the easement so you not have a crash when you're trying to leave, and you get the finger and told where you can go. That's really professional by them, and that's what we're dealing with. Even though it might be subs or third party that works for them, but they still represent that company. So it's just not a good taste in my mouth for something like this, and I know that we're kind of over a barrel with it, because if we don't do it, that $13.37 per household or $45 per business could be what?
So if you voted no as a group, the only mechanism that is available to address that would be in Atmos's hands. And Atmos can choose to appeal that to the Railroad Commission, which they will because they have to charge us something. So they're going to appeal that to the Railroad Commission. It would be up to the Railroad Commission to decide what the rate would be. And Atmos would be able to do three things. They could go ahead and do what we're doing now and say, no, we just want you to force Kerrville to pay the negotiated rate that they've gotten already. They could go with the original $273 million and say, we want you to make Kerrville pay their percentage of that, their original ask. Or they could go the GRIP process, and that would be even higher. So unfortunately, I agree that
Rolling the
we're
dice,
over a barrel, and also if they appealed, we would have to pay their attorney's fees, even if, just the process. So this is the lowest rate that we can possibly get. That's why we're part of the group, because we know that Atmos is a monopoly, and so we need to have as much force as we have on our side to combat that. And unfortunately, this is the best deal that we were able to get, our group was able to get in that negotiation.
$40 a month for a house.
I think that's commercial.
No, it's like $26 plus the 13.
Okay, but I have a question going forward. This is gonna be a reoccurring exercise, which it has been since I've been on council the very first time.
It is.
So I worry that we're never gonna get out of this cycle of we have to say yes. Not that I would say this is extreme increase, but it kind of feels like it could be. So what are our options? And I probably wouldn't vote no this time, but I sure would like to know going forward how we can do something different.
This is a legislative issue.
I know, that's what I'm thinking. Maybe we should track this legislatively, like, reach out to the Railroad Commission or someone that, over the course of the next year.
And I know, yeah, and I didn't mean to cut you off, I'm sorry. I know that your sentiment is shared by a lot of people. I'm one of the people who agrees with that sentiment.
Yeah.
But I know that sentiment is also shared among a lot of the cities that are part of the group. And so they're also looking at putting this on their legislative agenda to address as a group, and it's not a lobbying group, but in all of that force of all those cities going at one time to try and get something done to this legislation to make it a little bit more fair.
Hopefully make some progress with that. Have a little more.
It's every year it goes up. It's just.
Everything else every year goes up, not just them.
Well, this is recurring every year that we see
Okay,
this.
I need a motion.
I would move that we approve resolution number 37-2026.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, so vote. And it passes unanimously.
Unfortunately.
Item 5B, resolution number 38-2026. Mr. Hornis? Oh, Ms. Martinez. Who's going to present? I'm sorry.
I will.
I don't know. She seems willing to present. Did you want to? Her name is listed first, sir.
That's fair. I should say yes.
My child.
No, as you all know, we have the Arts and Culture District here, and in talking about alignment and what the best fit is for that district. I think its creation was kind of a byproduct of is Main Street working? Not really. We weren't fitting that mold. We were going to be put into some sort of timeout box by them because we didn't have a Main Street manager, and so y'all had the foresight to create the Arts and Culture District to kind of act as its replacement. And in walking through their first couple of board meetings, the fit of staff and kind of what we have going on currently and into the future for a while versus kind of the mission of, well, the arts and the CVB's foundation, especially, it aligns just a little bit better. And so what you have before you is a letter signed by Ms. Julie Davis, who is here if you have questions, and Dalton transferring over the management of the Arts and Culture District to the CVB Foundation. And then additionally, there's just a kind of a promulgated form from the state that's, a box that you have to check. So it can go to another government entity, it can go to a nonprofit, and it can go to one other. I'm blanking on what the one other is, but the CVB Foundation is a 501c3, and so they qualify to manage that. And so Ms. Julie and her board have graciously agreed to accept that responsibility, and here we are.
Any questions for Mr. Hornes?
No, but I do have a comment.
Please, go ahead.
I think I've enjoyed working with the CVB from the very beginning. When we got our designation, we had our first grant, and we really needed to know it's right after the 2025 flood. So we had a lot of material things we had thought of and had ideas to create with that money, but then we thought marketing, come back to Kerrville was a better way to go at that time. But CVB was very instrumental in guiding us. They had the marketing company already in place. They had a website already in place. We added a page. So I feel like we've already been kind of working with the CVB, and it's kind of a natural fit. You're attracting folks from outside 50 miles, or we're doing that and more within our locals. So the cultural district is we kind of complement each other in a way. So I think it will be a good thing. And the city is overwhelmed right now with other important matters, just recovering. And y'all are already doing what we'd like to do. So just giving you my 2 cents, I think it's a good thing.
Thank you. Would you like to make a motion?
Well, I'll make a motion that we approve resolution number 38-2026.
I'll second your motion.
Second?
Chef seconded first. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, so vote. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Michael.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Martinez, I'm not even going to ask Mr. Hornes about this one.
Okay, so for the TERS board, they met last month, which they discussed about the parking lot grant that we currently have open right now. Based on the recent flood, a lot of the parking lots was kind of washed away. They had some damages to their businesses. So they wanted to assist, and to help to assist that, they wanted to add an additional $50,000 to the program, which the total cost of it would be $100,000 for that program. And we'll also extend that deadline to October 30th. And it's currently open right now, and that application is going to end August 30th. So this one will extend it.
Any comments or questions?
We do have one citizen speaker.
Thank you. Comments, questions first? All right, who's our citizen speaker?
Barbara Ferguson.
My name is Barbara Ferguson. I live in Kerrville. And I wanted to just mention a couple of things regarding this tax increment funding. The TERS zones were established several years ago. And just this evening, when I saw this on here, the thought occurred to me, council created the TERS zones. And a yes or no question, if the council should choose to go through a particular process, does one exist to rescind TERS zones? I don't know whether our city attorney can answer that or not.
I can't answer that as I'm sitting here right now. I would have to review everything.
Okay. This is an example of, once again, when we specifically cut out funds to go in one place or another, that we can then later on find ourselves in a situation where it would be very helpful right now if the city had, tonight, they're going to vote on $250,000 of funds that are designated to go to one particular area of town, which may or may not be where the money's really needed right now. And the TERS zones, a lot of the disagreement with a TERS zone is that it can end up with government picking winners and losers on who you fund and who you don't fund, who needs a new parking lot and who doesn't. And I don't know the ones that are in question tonight. I'm not picking anybody out. I'm just saying that as the council goes forward, I hope that we can stay away from these kinds of agreements. I would recommend that the council right now would be a really good time, given the flood conditions, given all the challenges that you have, to rescind the TERS zones. A figure was thrown out to me just recently that they thought there was about $1 million in the TERS Zone 1 fund. That's $1 million that could help meet some of the needs that weren't covered in the budget, some of the things that people talked about tonight. And once again, anytime we restrict funds to this little category and that little category, it can come back to bite us. So that's just my comment on TERS zones.
Anybody else?
No, sir.
All right, we have before us a resolution. Is there a motion? Or more discussion?
Just for clarification, this is another $50,000 grant,
It's an additional to the grant that's already in place.
but for $50,000?
Yes.
Okay. I will make a motion to approve resolution number 39-2026 to approve another $50,000 from TERS for the parking lot improvement grant.
Second?
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, so vote. And it passes unanimously. 5D, Ms. Martinez?
All right. So similar to the parking lot grant, we also have the exterior enhancement grant. This one is currently closed, but the TERS board also wanted to help businesses since a few of them were also damaged in the TERS district number 1. So regarding this one, they wanted to have an additional $50,000 to the program with a total to not to exceed to $100,000 for the program. This would also include reopening the applications and have the deadline for October 30th and also removing the matching grant.
Any questions?
Just for the enhancement, exterior enhancement grant.
We don't have anyone signed up for this one, do we?
No, sir.
All right. All right, any discussion?
You made a comment, just for clarification, application, correct?
Application.
And correct, Mr. Hornis?
Yes, sir.
They have to apply.
Yes, sir.
So it's just not willy-nilly giving them the money.
No, there was, that's correct. Last round of applications, we had, I don't know, we had more applicants than we had funding for. And so there's a team that scores that and recommends that to the TERS board.
Can I speak to this? I'll speak to this. Okay, so I obviously was on TERS, but then myself and another TERS member who was outside of the TERS zone, and some other citizens that were selected who are not in the TERS area, were selected to review both the enhancement grant applications and the parking lot applications. And so when we first received the enhancement grant applications, we saw that there was an abundant need of help with parking lots. And if anyone has done any work to a parking lot, you know it's a lot of money. So we put those applications aside and encouraged them to apply for the parking lot improvement grant, whatever you want to call it. There was no favoritism involved. We went meticulously through those applications. They had to submit pictures, and we could see the improvement. They couldn't have already done the work and then ask for reimbursement. It was for work that they intended to do in the future. They had a timeline on it. It's not just us picking our friends to get work done. That did not, I can guarantee you that did not take place, so.
TERS one, correct? And this is, TERS one includes a lot of the areas that were damaged
Absolutely.
recently in the flood.
Yes.
So it kind of makes sense to try to help out your neighbors and
Yes, especially when
businesses.
they're sitting, waiting for assistance.
Thank you. And thank you for your comments.
All right, is there a motion then on Resolution 40, 2026?
I'd make the motion to approve resolution number 41-2026.
40. We're almost at 41.
Oh, did I skip one?
2026.
Resolution number 40-2026.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, so vote. And it passes unanimously. Thank you.
Oh, this is the fun one.
All right, item number 5E. Ms. Behrens, you up?
Yes, sir, it's me again. So Martin's going to bring up a short presentation. We talked about most of these things during budget presentation, so I'll review them quickly and then answer any questions that you might have relating to this. So Resolution 41-2026 proposes date and time for public hearing on the proposed property tax rate. It establishes a rate to be considered at that public hearing, and the action requested today from council is to set a time and date for a public hearing recommended on September 8th in order to have the second reading in time to adopt the budget in line with state law by the end of September. Establishes a proposed rate for consideration at that public hearing, but no action is to be taken on the property tax rate at this time. So again, we talked about this at the proposed budget. The total voter approval rate as presented in the proposed budget for fiscal year 27 is 5846, and that was what the budget was built upon. We did receive notification from the tax assessor collector on Friday that the disaster rate had been calculated at a rate of 0.5995. So council can consider adopting all or any part of that rate if you so choose. I did do the estimations at the bottom, both at the voter approval rate and then also at the disaster rate that was provided to us. So the estimated difference is about $490,000 between the two rates, and that is to the general fund. We talked about some of this stuff earlier. I think it's important to look at the impact to property owners. So you can see the adopted rate of last year of 5711, and we talked about all the reasons that the voter approval rate is higher. You can see the change there both in dollars for the rate that is proposed in the budget and then also at the full 8% disaster rate there on the right. We talked about disaster exemptions earlier, and we're doing the best we can to get this information out to any property owners that may have been impacted by the flood so that they know that they are eligible to apply for those exemptions from property tax. And that deadline is October 30th for them. And then we also talked about fund balance earlier, so I won't go through all this again. If someone has a specific question on fund balance, happy to talk through that. It was we were challenged in our department to come up with a number that we could comfortably use a fund balance, of course, with the hope that that would be reimbursed or partially reimbursed if FEMA declares a disaster, and that would go back into fund balance if we were to dip into that to use it. So we're hopeful, just optimistic, I could say that is coming hopefully in the future. But we could potentially use $2.5 to $3 million in reserves if we needed to for flood repairs and still stay above, we'd be at about 19% in 2032, assuming that we didn't put any of those monies back. So happy to answer any questions. Again, I know we talked through a lot of this in budget presentation, but some other questions may have stemmed since then, so.
And we
Do
do
you have
have
speakers?
one, yes, sir.
Thank you. Any questions for Julie? Any comments?
So the fund balance, we can use more of that if we need to.
We can. We can. I think that would be definitely a discussion we would need to have to see what the impact would be, but we certainly can. We have a minimum requirement by policy of 15%. I didn't take that down that low, but it's an easy calculation for us to do on the backside to be able to say if we use this much money today, what is the impact of that 10 years from now? And like we talked about, when we do projections, fund balance is really the primary thing we're looking at, and are we meeting that reserve requirement? But it's a rainy day fund, and I mean, it's raining.
We've had
so it's raining, and so I think that there would be little argument to be able to dip into those reserves, to be able to make some of the repairs that we need to make that are related to the general fund. I mean, just
Well, I think
specifically
we're
streets and
probably
things.
gonna have to consider that. I mean,
Yes,
obviously, we
sir.
haven't considered it yet, but
Yes,
it
sir.
is possible.
Yes, sir.
And, we've had the rainy days, as you
Yes, sir.
say, and, we don't know yet what our total impact's
Yeah.
gonna be, but it's gotta be an option for us.
Yes, sir. And
Use
that,
Then we just have to have some sort of a plan to get it back. But
Correct.
we could go below our guidelines.
yeah, and we have, like I said, to stay to that minimum 15, we've got a little more leeway than the 3 million, that we presented. That was getting us to about 19%. And that's assuming that our projections are correct and all of the things change the way that we anticipate them changing. Could change more, could change less. And so that's why we update this on a regular, but certainly something we can look at, all the way down to the 15. We just, tried to present something that would at least show that that's what those funds are there for. We've been very fortunate, at least in my career with the city, to never have had touched reserve funds like that. Once in a while for a one-time expenditure, but that was usually from surplus budget money or things like that. So definitely something we can look at and bring that back to you.
Any other comments or questions before we open it to the speaker? Who's our speaker?
George Baruti.
Rudy. Anybody else?
No, sir.
All right, I think what we have before us is a resolution to set a rate, not to set a public hearing for a rate, and a public hearing for a proposed rate. At the time this agenda bill was created, we did not have the voter approval disaster tax rate calculated. That was not due to any carelessness. It's just that we had a flood on July 16th. And it takes time to get everything back and calculated. I think what we need to do is either we need to decide tonight whether this resolution will set forth a tax rate to be considered as written, or it will be set forth a tax rate to be considered as calculated by the voter approval disaster rate. And it sounds like doublespeak, but we're not voting on the tax rate tonight. We're voting on this resolution to have a public hearing at a certain tax rate. Does that make sense? Kind of?
Yes,
Okay.
sort of.
It shouldn't, but it kind of does. And so what I think is before us is, what will we approach that public hearing with? Will we approach it with the total voter approval rate, or will we approach that public hearing with a voter approval disaster rate? Now, I know this is a hot issue for many people. And it was last year. We had the same discussions and the same opposition and the same arguments last year. And I think what, in my mind, has to be decided is, will this help city government meet the demands placed upon our citizens by this second disaster? And in my mind, the voter approval disaster rate will help us meet what the citizens expect from their municipal government. Things to be repaired, things to continue to be strengthened, not just replaced as they were, but replaced stronger and more resilient. And this is only a small fraction. The difference between the voter approval and the voter approval disaster rates will generate less than $500,000. As has been discussed here tonight, the city faces potentially up to $100 million in damages. And even if we do get the full FEMA public assistance, we still have to come up with our share of the match. And, you know, I agonize over this. I also pay taxes. I do. And on more than my homestead, which may be frozen this year, George. I think I don't know when they actually do it. I got one more year of it. Oh, darn it. So close. But that's not the only property on which we pay property taxes. And so this will affect me as it affects everyone in town. And it's not a decision that I think anyone on this council takes lightly. And I'm hoping that as we vote tonight, we each vote what we believe to be the best for our community. And I know that I'm going to vote to amend this resolution to reflect the voter approval disaster rate. If that's the motion that's made. Any other discussion?
Julie, I'm gonna call on you one last time on this subject, ma'am, because people see disaster tax, they see tax second time. Explain it again, how this works for the general public. We're not adding to last year's.
Right. So when we recalculated this year, we had to use a clawback basically and recoup and reduce from this year's tax rate the difference that was generated from last year's disaster rate. It's a little bit complicated to explain, but basically it's an additional worksheet that says what was your adopted rate last year, and how much revenue was generated between that and what would have been your voter approval rate, and the difference was removed from our tax rate for this year. So the disaster rate is basically a calculation of 8% over the no new revenue rate. Senate Bill 2, if you go back to 2019, changed the statute to say that your voter approval rate is 3.5% max over the no new revenue M&O part of your rate without having to go to the voters. And so instead of calculating it 1.035, we're calculating it no new revenue times 1.08. That's the difference. So it's on the rate, not on the revenue. I think that was the big distinguishing factor last year between the two and what that increase actually was. So it's not an 8% tax rate. I'm sorry, it's not an 8% tax increase. It's setting a rate at 8% over a no new revenue rate instead of 3.5% over a no new revenue rate.
Only on M&O.
And only on the M&O, that's correct.
Hopefully that's clear as mud for a lot of people.
I hope so. I know it's a lot. It's really difficult, even for those of us who work in it all the time. The tax rate calculation sheet does walk you through it, so you can see it. And I'm happy to talk through that with anybody who wants to. We actually took that sheet and built it out in Excel so that we can modify some different things and look to make sure, numbers are jiving and all that. So I'd be happy to talk about that offline with anybody that wants to.
To me, I'm just going to make a comment. To me, this year, well, this part is evident to everybody in Kerrville. This year was a totally different flood than last year. Last year, our neighbors in the county were the ones that received so much of the damage. This year, we're the ones. The citizens on the city infrastructure, bridges. I mean, you look at it, you see it every day while you drive through. So last year we didn't know a number. This year we have a number presented. Thank you for getting us that number, because last year we were all over the place. So I applaud you and your staff's work. Thank you so much. Thank you to Mr. Reeves for his work, and he did it pretty doggone quick for us too. So thank you.
You're welcome. And remember that we won't know the lost property value from this for a good while. So Kirkad was really good at working with us last year to provide updates on a regular basis as those exemptions came in. So we don't really know on the personal property side yet exactly what that looks like.
So I want to just kind of remind everybody that those properties that took damage will not be impacted by this, if there's if the values are less.
Well, they have to apply for the exemption, and there's a process that they have to go through to do that. So I don't know that I'd want to go that far as to say they wouldn't be impacted. The hope is that they wouldn't. That's a state process that they have to go through, and so there's several factors that go into that calculation. But Kirkhat, I know, works through those as quickly as they can. The hope is that it would reduce the amount of their property that was damaged enough so that there wouldn't be an impact by
Of
this.
course,
But
every individual thing. but
correct.
The idea is.
The idea behind it
Theory
is,
that they.
yes,
so-
in theory, yes, if the state form, we know how state forms are so far.
And we know that from last year's flood that there was loss of values.
Right.
And people didn't pay the.
Right, they did have their values adjusted on their home only. Mhm.
Yes. Elaine?
So to kind of echo Jeff's question, so someone who doesn't really pay attention, they're just hopping on Facebook and they're seeing chatter about this. When would this take effect? When would it end? Can you help navigate?
If you were to choose to go with a disaster rate? Okay, so to clarify first, even if you told us to publish at this disaster rate, you could still consider another rate all the way up until the end of the meeting on 9/8. So just for clarification. You just couldn't adopt a higher rate than we publish. So just to clarify that. So what would happen basically in years moving forward is, let's say that next year that our value loss was such that our assessed value was less than our values on the books this year, then potentially, under certain circumstances, we could continue that disaster rate. Now, the laws changed quite a bit, and that law could change again before next year. So we had to do a lot of things this year that we didn't have to do last year in regards to proving eligibility for the disaster rate. So if our rates for our values go up next year from this year, then we wouldn't be able to consider the disaster rate in next year's budget. And we would again have to do that reversal of any revenue generated from the emergency tax rate. We'd have to reduce that from the rate. It's changed over into a rate value. You reduce that from the rate in your calculation at your end.
So to be clear, if we amend the resolution 41, 2026, to a proposed rate of 0.5995, the voter approval disaster rate.
Right.
When we actually have the public hearing, that's when we actually vote whether we do that or
correct, or any part of it. So you correct.
If we just do as presented,
then you cannot increase it on 9/8.
You can't add the disaster.
That is
tax
correct.
rate at that time.
Yes, whatever we publish, it would be the max that you could adopt in both readings in September.
We can do that one again.
All right. Council, what do you want to do?
I would make a motion. We approve the voter approval disaster rate of 0.5995 and call for the public hearing. What's it, at our next, let's be at our next council meeting.
I'll second it.
Mr. Tosh, does that meet?
Yes, it does. You can't sign the resolution that's in front of you, but you can make a motion based on you can vote based on what the motion is, and I would just have to write a new resolution for you to sign.
Okay, thank you. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, so vote. It passes unanimously. That's a hard vote.
A lot of hard feelings coming in.
Hadn't said it, so.
Right.
Item 5F, discussion of Granger MacDonald Park. Mr. Hornis.
Mayor and council, thank y'all for taking this conversation up tonight. I know we had already a lot on our plates, and that was a busy night. So I will keep this kind of short and sweet. I don't have a presentation. We received notice from the Thompson Drive Partners about a week and a half ago, requesting that the city council deed the property back to them and consider Granger MacDonald Park abandoned, more or less. That's the crux of that conversation. In conversations, with the mayor, we put that item back on here to have this discussion because we as staff feel like we need some direction, right? And the first part, you all directed us to come back in 6 months. I feel like I'm failing you right now. Because here I am, I think 2 weeks later, and this was
Feels
not.
like 6 months, though.
the-
Every week feels like
I was just
several
about to
months.
say.
So, but, I think there's an effort by both the UGRC and several of the members of the UGRC are here today, as well as from, Mr. MacDonald, who's, I think, when he looks at this project, he looks at it as, this is his father's namesake, right? And so I fully understand where they're coming from. At the same time, I fully understand the position that you all are in and the decisions that you have to make. So as I was thinking about this, there are certainly probably more options than this, but I see three ways that we can go. First is stay the course with where you are. You all told us to come back in 6 months and revisit this item. Tell us to do that. We will shut the door and we will move on. And 6 months from now, we'll come back and we will revisit these bids and consider this project at a later date. The second option would be akin to what you did with Tybee Mountain Cemetery. You can deed the property over to another nonprofit entity, and they would operate, the tenets of that is they have to operate that piece of property in the manner in which you would have operated it, right? So you would have operated as a public park. The UGRC board, if they were willing to accept that property in those conditions, as long as they operate it as a park, intend to operate it as a park, it would stay the property of the UGRC, right? If it ever were to stray from that, become a private piece of land, not be open to the public, at that point it could be deeded back over to the city, would be deeded back over to the city. This is the same as if the cemetery, they stopped maintaining and stopped operating the cemetery, that would revert back to the city. That's option 2. Option 3 is and the request of Thompson Drive Partners is to simply deed the property back over to. They've written and publicly stated that they would deed that property over to the UGRC themselves to operate as a public park. The UGRC was noted in the paper that they would operate it as a public park and keep it open to the public. And so that's the overarching theme. Those are the 3 options. Tell us you want to just stay the course, and 6 months from now we'll come back and we will get back to work. 2, to the UGRC board themselves directly. And 3 is to the Thompson Drive property group, the original owners of the property.
Thank you. Do we have anybody signed up to speak?
Yes, sir, we do.
All right, any questions for Mr. Horns before we get to our speakers? I think I understand the 3 options. Who's our first speaker?
Lane Guerrero.
Mr. Guerrero.
My name's Lane Guerrero. I live at 307 Lakewood Drive. I kind of wanted just to talk about a couple things. I think the biggest question is, will it be a public park? And I looked up, we have our own mission statement to inspire lifelong stewardship of the Guadalupe River through education, river safety, conservation, recreation, and meaningful access to all. That's been our mission the whole time. I also want to mention, our focus, if it is given back to the MacDonald companies, we feel like that money could be better used. I know money's sort of fungible, so some of that money, the 1.8 or 1.9, could go back to the EIC. And then you guys, if you can figure out a way to get that into the recovery effort, our donors and our board, we feel like that would be a really good thing. It's also important to remember that, building the River Center is part of the recovery effort. We have the Shriner Sailing Club, the sailing team actually, that starts up in the fall. They're recruiting students
Lang,
Is there any question? Sorry.
yes, real quick. Public, open to the public.
Open to the public, 100%. Has to be. That's our goal. It's, not just the public, but people with mobility challenges. The 2 out of 3 kids that don't get to go to camp every year, those people. A lot of people who don't have the access to this sort of thing. And that's always been our mission, so.
Thank you. I think that's very important to the community as well, so thank you.
100%. Any other questions?
Other comments or questions?
I just want to say to you personally, thank you, and for your team, but you were the first person that ever talked to me about this project 6, 7 years ago. I know your heart's been in it, and I know you've worked very hard, and you've garnered some great committee people and board members. So don't give up. I'm sure your dream will happen in some way, because of your desire for it to happen. So thank you.
Well, it's not
All
me.
you've done.
There's 17 board members and
Right.
330 donors, so it's more than just me.
I think it was you and John, though, that first
I think John
put
and
the
Charlie
idea.
McIlvain, they're the ones that got it all started.
Thank you,
All right.
no, for doing that.
John Anderson?
Mr. Anderson.
I'm John Anderson. I am speaking as a member of the board of the River Center. This project, as I think most of you know, was conceived just about 8 years ago. And the city, representatives of the city, either a mayor or the city manager, have been involved in discussions to try to accomplish this for 8 years. And it's a complex project. It's challenging. It has been for the city council, for the staff, and for us. I mean, the 2 things that have happened, I think, recently would be the disastrous flood, recent flood, and the consequent pressures on the city and all of you in terms of the finances of the city and how to meet all the needs of this community. I think your recent decision to this direction of the staff to come back to you in 6 months to take another look at the project creates a different issue for us. Quite frankly, for us to if we have to wait 6 months to begin work on the park itself, we're going to lose momentum. We run the risk with our existing donors and community supporters and prospective donors who could look at this and say, this just isn't going anywhere. Where in fact, we're ready to go. We're ready to deliver the project that we've been talking about for years to the community, and I think its benefits, it will be good for the community because we will be offering educational and recreational opportunities to the youth and families of the community, diversified and expanded, that simply don't exist today, and we can do it. Secondly, it will help you and the staff of the city with a very challenging financial situation by taking the money that would be otherwise go into this park development to place wherever you might otherwise use it. We recognize that we're part of this community. I think the third thing is the benefit is beyond all of that. I mean, all of you, I'm sure, are painfully aware of how regional and national press has been looking at us recently. I mean, we're no longer the poster child that people are being sympathetic to. They're looking for, you know, the journalism thing, if it bleeds, it leads. Sorry, Louis. But that's a reality. And the stories that have been out there are not helpful to us at all. And I think that we can deliver this project very quickly, and it will be something of a phoenix project for this community. It will give the community something to talk about to the national press beyond what we're struggling through day by day, which they're aware of, they appreciate, but it's not a front page story. And what we can deliver with that park is something that is new, it is forward, it's something exciting that they can look at. And I think that while we have talked to the community for years as a community project for the benefit of families and youth of the community, we have not talked about its economic benefits, but in fact, they're very substantial. This could easily be classified and presented as an economic development project, and it's ready to go. We're not quite with a shovel in the ground, but we're ready to go. But it is an economic development project, and it's very substantial in its diversification and expansion. It will create construction jobs, it will create permanent jobs, it will create infrastructure and programs that will attract tourists back to this community. So our request tonight is that you select of the three options that Michael presented. I think the third one, the Thompson Partners request. And our request to you we would urge you to request the staff to go ahead and begin developing the process for the rescission of the property. Thank you very much.
Barbara Ferguson?
Ferguson.
Mr. Horn has laid out three options, but I do believe there's a fourth option, and I think it could really benefit everybody. I have a lot of sympathy for the Upper Guadalupe River Center Foundation and all the work they put in. What they're trying to build, I think, is a really commendable thing. I don't want to see that come to a standstill, but I also don't want to see the public not be considered first and foremost in the council's decision-making. The Upper Guadalupe River Center has assured us over and over again that it will be a public park, and I believe them. But they are a nonprofit, they're made up of a board that will change over time. Things do change, and it becomes a very sticky situation when projects that are like this, when a deed has been transferred, when we have stepped back and abandoned a piece of property, and then if down the road what they had promised doesn't happen, not because of their actions, but because of future actions. Access to our river is something that I believe the city should retain. This piece of property, this it's 1.5 acres on James Road, was acquired by the city when Thompson Partners was seeking approval for their landing development. This was a parkland dedication requirement. They could either donate the land or they could pay the fee to the city for developmental approval for all these apartments. Parkland dedication is an important tool. When cities approve residential development, it recognizes that residents need open green spaces and our quality of life is diminished when every inch of land is covered with buildings. So let's be accurate as we look at this. This piece of property was not a gift. It was to meet a development requirement. When the foundation first approached the city council with their project, they stated that they were not asking for any public funding. Their plans at the time included all the items that they later asked to be paid out of public taxpayer funds through an EIC grant. It was in the paper last week, and they have stated now tonight that they are prepared to underwrite the costs of improvements that they want in the Granger MacDonald Park. And I think that's wonderful. I think it's really admirable that they've come forward, that their funders have stood behind them, that they have gotten additional funds, and they now can do the improvements to the park. I support the city reaching an agreement with the Upper Guadalupe River Center to build and maintain the improvements that they want on the city-owned park without any public funds to make their project possible. I do not support the city giving back an asset they required. Parkland dedication was important then, and it's important now. Public river access was why the property was acceptable in lieu of the developmental fee. And the only way the city can ensure that all the public can enjoy this amenity now and into the future is to retain the property as a public park. An agreement can be reached, I'm sure, through the city staff and the Guadalupe River Center, because I think they are operating in good faith, and we can reach an agreement and still maintain the property under the city, under city ownership. And I hope that you'll consider that. Thank you.
George Baruti.
I'm going to try and condense because she just said a number of things that I would have said. So, the proposal that's in front of you, though, is, I would argue, a complicated solution when there's a simpler one, and she basically outlined it. Instead of giving the parkland to somebody else and having them do all the work, they've already just announced that they can fund this whole thing. So a better option would be, and really I think your only option, as I'll explain in a minute, is to set up an agreement with the River Center to manage and maintain the park similar to what we did with the ball fields, the baseball side of the ball fields. What we used to do, I don't know what we do anymore with the tennis center. And what we used to do, I don't know what we do anymore with the golf course and the Calu Theater, all of which are city-owned property being managed by somebody else. The reason I don't think you can even do what's being proposed is, as she pointed out, this is a parkland dedication, which was done by plat. So in 2019, the lot, was dedicated to the city by plat. And then 2 years later, for reasons I'm unsure why, a gift deed was written where the MacDonald's Thompson Drive partners gifted this lot to the city. They didn't own it at that time. 2 years after it was dedicated to the public by plat, it's already owned by the city. So that deed is really kind of, redundant, not necessary or whatever. And when you dedicate something by plat, you can go research it, but there's tricky ways on how you can dispose of it. You can't just abandon it and walk away. And like I said, the simple solution, again, is just hold the property, let them build what they need to build on there, and you, by owning it, guarantee it stays the park. They have access, you have an agreement with them, a 99-year agreement, or whatever it ends up being, and it's all solved, no problems, no legal issues, and it stays as it was written. So, thank you.
Who's next?
Eichner?
Judy Eichner. I remember her.
Good evening, Judy Eichner on Cardinal Drive. This is a win-win for everybody. It really, really is. And we've just now heard another suggestion. It won't be quite a win-win if we stay partners. It's an idea, but it won't be as easy as it sounds. It is legally, we've been told, and assured it is legally okay to do an abandonment in this regard. And the board has very, very much appreciated the money that was available. That was wonderful. But if that money went back to the city, you guys could use it in many, many good ways. And it will be a better situation for everybody if we do what we are going to do. When I say we, the board, we take, the land goes back to the MacDonald Company. They turn it over to us. We can write in bylaws, things of that nature, that it will need to remain forever a public park. So that can be covered by the board and by that group. McDonald's also company also has a say in this. That has been their requirement, that it become a public park. So they're not going to let that just go by the wayside. You have a board that is ready, willing, and able to take on this responsibility and risk. And it is a big responsibility, and there is a risk involved with this. But they are ready to do it. They are capable. If we wait 6 months, and that's would be another distraction with trying to do what has just been suggested, if we wait another 6 months, it's going to be detrimental to the project. It will be detrimental to our donors. And we'll lose our momentum, and that has been mentioned. And that's not good. It's not good for us. We need to keep going. We need to do this as quickly as we can and just make life easier for both parties. So I just ask you to do what is best for Kerrville in this situation, as I always ask you, and we would just ask you to consider what is before you. Thank you.
Greg Appel.
Mr. Appel.
Good evening. Greg Appel, 3920 Kite Drive, Kerrville. I find myself in somewhat unfamiliar territory because for the last 4 or so years, I've been asking for money for this project. And tonight, I come asking for you to keep the money that the EIC bonds were allocated for Granger MacDonald Park. And the reason is simple. It's time. We find ourselves in a position where we were coming very, very close to breaking ground on both Granger MacDonald Park and the Guadalupe River Center. We have bids for the Granger MacDonald Park improvements. Those bids have a lifeline attached to those. Further delays mean likely higher bids in the future. We could find ourselves chasing a growing cost that we may never catch up with. So my colleagues have already done a good job, I think, of talking about the importance of this project. I firmly believe that this project has a huge role to play in the healing of our community and the way we view our river specifically, and for it to go back to being a blessing to our citizens and not a cause of devastation and despair. So I just would encourage you all to help us to go forward expeditiously so that this park can be ready for our community as we emerge from this disaster.
Anybody else?
That's the end of the citizen speakers.
All right, I want to say a little preamble. I've publicly supported the Granger MacDonald Park since I was first told about it and made aware of its particulars. The EIC revenue bonds, which included Granger MacDonald Park, passed 4-3 from the EIC. 3 of those votes in favor of are here tonight. John and Mr. Appel and myself voted to do that. It only passed by 1 vote. And then when it came to council, it wasn't a unanimous vote. It was 4-1 to continue the process that included Granger MacDonald Park. I have always been a supporter of this park. I think it's a good idea. It allows people access to the river who currently do not have that access, and it provides programs and activities and opportunities that our community currently does not have. And then July 16th, 2026 happened. And we are faced with overwhelming damage to our infrastructure. If we were to choose option 3, abandon the property back to the property owner, the developer, and we have had the assurances of the board that it will always remain a public park, that might be the best and easiest route for us to take, because then we can release that money back to the EIC. Now, what the EIC will do with that money is up to the EIC. This council does not decide what the EIC spends money on. They don't. And we can plead and we can twist arms sometimes, but the EIC is independent, always has been. And I personally would direct staff to pursue option 3, abandon the property back to the MacDonald companies or whoever the developer is, and then he, in a letter to us, he says that group would then transfer the property to the Upper Guadalupe River Center. Look, I wanted to get built. Right now is not the best time for the city to be the partner in this project, and that's what I would do. Now, what would you guys? What's the will of the council?
Well, I'd also like to say that we have the support of the public on a lot of this, and we have the support of other elected officials that are not sitting up here but sit other places, or soon to be sitting at other places, saying they think it's a great idea. You know, they love the idea of the park, but we should give that back. So I'm with you.
Thank you.
Oh, I've been a real supporter of the Upper Guadalupe River Center myself.
You were on the board, weren't you?
I was on the board for a while, and I think it can be a great asset to the community, for sure. I guess, I wonder if city attorney could address a question about the parkland as platted, and if that's, what kind of a issue is that really, in your opinion?
Well, I'd have to look at the plat and what the city did, but usually if you're dedicating by the plat, the city has to take some action to approve it. And no work was ever done on that before the deed was provided, is my understanding.
I'm sorry, there's no vote?
The city never did work on that property after the plat, before the deed was ever provided. The city has not done any work on that property. The city has tried to get work done, but the city has not done any work. So, yeah, that didn't pass ownership. The plat is the plat. It says what that piece of property is, but the deed is what transferred the property into the name of the city and the ownership into the city.
Okay, so, I understand though, there are some restrictions about cities abandoning park properties.
So this particular deed has a reversion piece to it. So the city accepted it with that reversion included in that.
Okay.
So this isn't being done pursuant to the law. This would be done pursuant to the deed and the terms of the deed.
Okay, so we got other parks that we could probably do without. We got almost more than we can handle now. And, but in this case, we can abandon it. Okay.
My recommendation, I think to postpone it for 6 months. I was gone during that meeting, so I didn't get to share my thoughts, but I agree. Your momentum, you want to keep this going. So if we can help you keep it going, and at the same time, it'll benefit the city, which is a very admirable part for you to do, which I recognize. That's my recommendation.
Crystal, anything?
I'm going to be the odd duck. I originally was in agreement with everything that they were saying, but I think, so thinking long-term, like decades long-term, the UGRC board is obviously going to change. We're going to change. So.
I hope so.
Well, you think every 2 weeks is 6 months. And to ensure, my understanding is to ensure legally by state law that that park remains public, it would be that the city then, correct my wording, then deed it over to the UGRC. And I think, to steal some words from Miss Judy Eichner, that would actually be, in my opinion, be a win-win-win for Justin MacDonald and his family, the UGRC, and the taxpayers. So that's my train of thought.
Not the Thompson Partners, but the UGRC.
Yes, because then please correct me, is that they are legally bound to operate it as a park, a public park. And if they don't, then it gets reverted back to us.
That's correct.
Well, does say that that's what he would prefer.
But I'm saying decades down the road, when their board changes, when our city council changes, maybe when Mr. MacDonald isn't here anymore, I'm looking way down the road, not 6 months, a year from now, or anything like that. What protects
Park, 50-some years.
Yes, what protects our citizens from Granger MacDonald Park always being a public park.
I don't have a problem with that either.
So, I wonder what the UGRC, I mean, what's the downside for you all if you do it that way?
Don't speak at once.
I'm not sure. Explain it again.
So the deed to you.
It would go to you.
But with the obligation to keep it, and if it didn't, it would revert back to the city. So I mean, how does that, if it's deeded to you, what's the drawbacks?
That you have to operate it as a public park, as you're saying.
I can't speak for Thompson Partners. I feel like they feel like it's already been abandoned. And so that might be an issue. The other issue is, that if we take it on, you don't have the liability of this park. We would have the liability of it. As if you did have the park, you'd have another park that you'd have liability for. So it'd be a benefit to the city.
It wouldn't slow you down.
It could, because a rescission process is almost immediate. So if you were to vote to abandon the park, literally the next day, and then we can get going on all the bids and everything else that we got to do.
I'm looking at William.
Do you want me to answer? Or? I mean, the liability for the city, if you converted it, deeded it to UGRC with that reversion, if they do not operate it as a park, it would have to come back to the city. That's what you have to do under law. But that liability would go with the deed. And so they would be the owners of the property, and the liability would go to them, not the city. It would just be public, operated as a public park, but the city would not have liability.
So they can build the park, all of that.
Right.
But that wouldn't be immediate, like the rescission.
It wouldn't. I don't think it'd happen.
I don't know there would be that
The
much
sooner the
longer.
better, honestly.
So how long does it take to deed?
So if you wanted to revert it back to Thompson, that would have to be by deed. If you want to give it to UGRC, that would have to be by deed. So either way, you have to do it by deed. The only additional issue that you would have for UGRC to be the owners of it would be a service agreement that the city would enter into with UGRC so that they understand they have to operate it as a public park.
Ultimately, that's where it's gonna be. I mean,
I can't speak for Thompson. I don't know what they're
well,
gonna
then
do.
that's the point, I
Yeah.
guess, too, I'm thinking it will be, so.
I just know that we would prefer option 3 is what we're hoping to get.
So we have it on the agenda here as just a discussion, so,
We're not voting tonight, right?
so we're not voting tonight, apparently.
Michael, do you want? Yeah, I mean, I think that we're putting it on the agenda and Michael can speak to it so that we have a direction as to how y'all want to go.
I need consensus from you all what you would like to do. That's the simplest I can put it. I don't understand the machinations between option 2 and option 3. Option 2, if I go back to it, was deeded to the UGRC. Option 3 also ends up with it deeded to the UGRC. Not real sure I understand what the hiccup is in any of this.
There's no delay in time. I don't know.
It's not for me to explain. I need direction. That's what I
The
need.
hiccup is, we could have a clawback if we do it directly to them.
As you all see fit, this is y'all's park, right? So this is your property. Look, there, we've had property that's raw parkland that has been here for decades, right? It's not an anomaly, and you are not a unique city, right? I understand the push from the board to have it. I don't see the difference between deeding it to the UGRC or deeding it to one who then deeds it to the next.
Is the a restriction in the deed that says it must be a public?
I 100% agree with that. Yes, sir. I just don't understand why
Well, that
is
restriction
why
would
is that
survive the
slower?
double deeds.
Yeah, I don't understand how
He
that's
answered
slower.
that question. Maybe not slower.
All right, guys, we just need to give them direction so they can come back with something we can actually vote on.
I'll explain why. Either way, we would have to have action from council. So if
Yes.
you reverted it back to Thompson, you would have to have a resolution abandoning it. If you did it to UGRC, you would have to approve the service agreement with UGRC.
Just make your motion. I'll vote against it. It's okay.
No, you make the motion, I vote against it.
Well, y'all have the majority.
Well, I don't think we're making a motion.
Just make a motion.
Oh, I think they
Why not?
are, just to give
Okay.
us staff.
It says
Well,
direction.
it's not a motion.
I don't know if we're making a motion, though.
Okay,
Oh,
I'm
we're
supposed to
not
make a
making a
motion.
motion.
It says give direction.
Consensus.
We get a consensus.
Provide staff
You
guidance
can
on
make,
next
you say,
steps.
Just say, you want 2 or you want 3?
Do y'all want 2 or do y'all want 3?
I could vote either way.
I could too,
I could
honestly.
do, I can do.
I think I would push for
I'm
3.
already, I'll tell you what.
If I had to choose,
Okay.
it'd be.
They're saying,
2's fine, 3's fine. At 2, it gives us a little bit more control in the future.
so we're supposed to hold up our hands?
Hmm?
Okay, I'm 2.
I'm 3. I'm 3.
I'm 2.
Okay, I think the consensus is we would like to explore deeding it directly, option 2. As long as that transmittal or that transfer includes clawback to the, comes back to the city as a public park, if it ceases to be operated as a public park. If that turns out to be cumbersome, please explain it to us in a memo. All right, let's move on to item 6A.
Option 2.
Item 6A is appointment to the Building Board of Adjustments. That was a committee of Sigerman and Harris.
Yes, and at this time, I would like to recommend to appoint Kyle Reeves as a permanent member, as he's currently an alternate, and Eric Roberts as a new member of the BBAA.
I will second your motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, so vote. Passes unanimously.
Sorry, I forgot.
You voted too, correct?
Yes, I did. I made the motion. I better.
Appointment to the Library Advisory Board. The committee was McKinney and Smith.
Okay, we had a excellent application from Regina Gordon. She's got education background and, the campus at Schreiner University, and she'd make an excellent member of the library board, and I make a motion that we approve Ms. Gordon to that position.
I second.
Motion's been made and seconded to appoint Regina Gordon to the Library Advisory Board. Any discussion? All in favor, so vote. Passes unanimously. Appointment to the Recovery Community Coalition. The committee was Seigerman and McKinney.
So I'll go ahead and.
Okay,
So, we have two applicants, Lori Finkbeiner and Timothy Truitt. These two are well-known to the current board at the Recovery Coalition, and I think I'd take their recommendation that we add these two, so I would move that we add Ms. Finkbeiner and Mr. Truitt to their board.
Motion, is that a motion then? Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion's been made to appoint Beiner and Truitt to the Recovery Community Coalition. Any discussion? All in favor, so vote. Passes unanimously. Appointment to the Planning and Zoning Commission. That was Harris and Smith.
So I spoke with the only applicant, who is local, has been here generational, and Miss Katie Kane. She applied for two positions. We talked the difference between two of them. I said, you just kind of gotta follow your heart and figure out what you want to do. And she said, I really want to be on planning and zoning. So with that, I would make the motion to appoint Miss Katie Kane to planning and zoning.
I will second.
Motion's been made. Any discussion? All in favor, so vote. Unanimous. Ms. Kane is appointed. However, she also applied for tax increment reinvestment zone, and I don't think we can appoint her to two, so.
I asked that question too.
So we will need more applicants for the TERS number one. We have no need to go in executive session. Any items for future agendas? Obviously, the transfer of the properties is going to be a future agenda item. Anything else? All right. Hearing none, we are adjourned at 9:31.